This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome to the weekend. Glad you're all here on a Friday afternoon. We're in the weekend mode, and we hope you are too. We realize the Masters is going on. We have TVs here, and we'll keep you updated in case you are driving around the nation or flipping around on your television. A lot to do as well. A couple of spring games tomorrow, and we'll look ahead to that with a conversation here shortly with Gus Malzahn, the Auburn football coach. Let's begin on the Plains and talk about what Auburn has in store. Like a coach on the field, Jarrett Stidham will compete in 7-on-7 on A-Day. He had surgery in his non-throwing shoulder. He has been watched very closely throughout the spring. We'll talk to Coach Malzahn about that. A lot of changes, replacing 4 starters on the offensive line. And they need a little help at running back. Any volunteers? Okay, I see 1 or 2 hands going up. Meanwhile, Ole Miss has a spring game. Tamu, really great finish to the season. Replacing Shea Patterson. 5 folks in Oxford are fired up about the young man, and we'll talk about that as well. We talked to Matt Luke earlier in the week. Arkansas's got a spring game, too. What are we going to see from Chad Morris? Hopefully a lot more than we saw under the recently departed Brett Bielema. Up-tempo offense, Cole Kelly, will he be the QB? We know Chad Morris likes to move the ball at a fast pace. Look forward to seeing that tomorrow as well. We look forward to hearing from you as well throughout the program, and we'll get your phone calls in just a moment. But first, let's tell you about what we have. Gus Malzahn will join us in just mere minutes. Look forward to that. Ian O'Connor. Conor McGregor has actually been arrested. Ian O'Connor will join us from Augusta National. Tim Brando, who better to talk about whatever Tim Brando wants to talk about. He'll join us in 2.5 hours from Fox Sports. And Brandon Marcello, he covers the Auburn Tigers, and he will join us as well. You may have been with us yesterday. I realize that those of you on radio don't get to see some of the same things, so we'll try to explain. But we showed a video. It may have been during one of the television breaks of a young kid in Omaha, Nebraska. We just saw it. I mean, just heard it. Taylor Hicks has done the Call Paul theme song, which we play before before we come on the air here at the beginning of the hour. We saw a video on Twitter of a young kid singing, or actually reacting to, the Call Paul song by Taylor Hicks. He's 10 years old. Well, actually, he's 10 months old. He'll be 10 years old in 10 years. For those who couldn't see it, the young kid, 10-month-old, as Taylor starts singing the Call Paul, the kid started inching closer and closer to the television. We have a call right now from Joe in Omaha, Nebraska. Joe, I'm assuming that young man is your son.
Yes, sir, he is, and he's here with me right now.
Tell us all about it. This is fascinating.
Okay, Paul. Well, I'm originally from Gainesville, Georgia, the same town as Matt, your recent infamous caller.
That's funny.
I was actually born in Birmingham, Alabama, and grew up an Alabama fan. But I grew up in Georgia from the mid-'70s through the 1990s. So I was there during their heyday of the great Vince Dooley years of the national championships and everything else. But I've remained an Alabama fan my entire life. I joined the Air Force, and it brought me out here to Omaha eventually, and that's where I've settled. And John has been watching the Paul Finebaum show since the beginning. Literally in utero. His mom is a middle school teacher here in Omaha, and she would come home every day when she was carrying him and crash on the sofa during your show. So John has been listening to you from the early going and ever since, and he gets excited watching you every day.
Well, we I don't know if there was, we saw just a snippet of a video. If you have more, please let us know. We were fascinated by it, and we played it yesterday, and we are absolutely delighted to hear this news. By the way, I also texted Taylor Hicks, and he was pretty overjoyed himself that he has all singers want younger fans, including 10-month-olds.
I'm sure. I actually have probably 10 or 12 of these videos I've recorded.
Oh, my goodness.
Waiting for the right one to send you, and that's the one I sent.
Okay, well, we appreciate it, and we certainly got the message. And if you have any more along the way or more developed, just send them along. And in fact, I just got a text from Taylor himself. He goes, "What's your son's name?" You said John.
John, yes, Johnny, John. Yes.
He said, "Tell John that he can help me write the new theme song." So
I'm sure he'd be delighted.
We'll see Taylor in a couple of months, in about a month when we go to Birmingham. He always sings the song for us there. So keep in touch with us, Joe. Appreciate your service to this country, and what a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You got it. That's great to hear. How cool. Love to hear from you. If you want to give us a ring at 855-242-7285, 855-242-7285. We'll keep up with the Masters. Tiger Woods does not look like he's going to win the tournament. He just double bogeyed the fifth hole and is going the wrong direction for those of you who are not accessible to a television set. More phone calls here before we get to Coach Malzahn. A lot of topics we'll bring on over from yesterday, including the conundrum that LSU fans are in with the expectations now going in the wrong direction. The FPI yesterday saying that LSU is somewhere in that 500 range based on schedule. Doesn't mean that's how it will end up. That's just a projection. Brandon is up next, and you are on the air. Go right ahead, Brandon.
Hey, what's going on, Paul? How are you today?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Got a couple of things to discuss. One of them I'm going to reflect on here in just a second is dealing with Auburn. I want to run a hypothetical by you first. Dealing with Lane Kiffin in his next landing spot, what conference could you see as far as from your experience in this line of work? What conference do you see him going back to the Pac-12, or where do you see him?
You know, I thought that would be a good place for him based on his offense. He didn't get, I still think Lane Kiffin is a really big year away from getting the kind of offers that he wants. Athletic directors, by and large, are a pack of people that tend to look at each other for guidance, and for whatever reason, the bigger schools continue to shy away from Lane Kiffin. I don't know why. I think he's one of the best coaches out there, but that's just the way people are.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm just kind of surprised. I mean, the numbers doesn't, they don't lie. I mean, he's well productive. He's just, he's got a problem with his image. But anyway, I was just curious your thoughts on that. And then the other part was dealing with Auburn and their offensive line. Is it a safe assessment to say that that's one of the largest Achilles heels on their program right now?
No doubt. I mean, they're when we talk to Malzahn here in a minute, I think that will be something we'll hear from him. They're trying to find the right pieces, and especially at the center position, which is the anchor of that line. So I think that is going to be something to watch. And that line got better last year. Of course, it couldn't have gotten any worse after the Clemson game.
I hear you, Paul. All right. Well, I hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you very, very much. Let's go to Eric next in Louisiana. Eric, welcome to our program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. What about you?
I'm doing fine. I just wanted to know a few things. Who's gonna win the West and the East? Everybody talks about Auburn coming back, and I just think they can do it.
You asking about the SEC East or West?
The West.
Yeah. I think the West is right now, it's all about Alabama, but it's been that way for many years. And I think the question is, can Mississippi State or Auburn make a run? I don't know. I don't see anyone else making a serious run. Do you?
No, sir. I don't see anybody making a serious run, especially like Auburn right now. They went to the SEC championship last season, and I just think that they are the top dog in that conference right now because Stidman's coming back, and he has to do it with the Heisman Trophy.
But here's the problem, though, Eric, for Auburn, and this will be something we hear from when we talk to Malzahn. But they start the season against Washington. That's a top 10 team, a potential Final Four team.
Yeah.
And they end the season at Georgia and at Alabama. I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to be really an extraordinary team to even split those last two games, let alone win one of them. They will still deal with LSU. That game will be at home, so that's a lot easier.
Right.
They have Mississippi State, but to me, it's the end of the season that's going to be Auburn's problem. Right.
Yeah, because they had to play Alabama in the Iron Bowl, and Alabama's tough, always tough in the Iron Bowl. I mean, it's a toss-up. Who's going to win Who do you think's going to win the East, Paul?
Well, I think Georgia will be the prohibitive favorite in the East.
Yeah. The East is kind of easy because Georgia always dominates the East. And
well, hold on a second. Georgia has not dominated the East. They did last year, but Florida got there the previous 2 years.
Yeah, but Florida got their eyes handed to them by Alabama.
That's true. That is true. But hey, listen, thank you for the call. Listen, we appreciate it. We will continue more phone calls. You want to get in, this is a good time. We still have some spots available. And love to hear from you in a few minutes at 855-242-7285. When we come back, we will talk to the head football coach at Auburn University. He, of course, is Gus Malzahn.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome all of you back, and we're delighted to welcome in from Auburn, Alabama, the head coach of the Auburn Tigers, Coach Gus Malzahn. The spring game tomorrow. Coach, I hope all is well, and before we get too deep into the weeds, how has the spring gone?
Tell you what, it went really well. We've got a young offensive line. It's really been good for that group kind of coming together. Our starting quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, has been out, but it's been good for our two freshmen. So overall, we're in a good spot and really just looking for a big day tomorrow.
Coach, let me start with Jarrett, and I know there have been a number of unfortunate injuries, but he had surgery in the off-season. How has he come along, and what do you expect, and when can he start getting up to mid-season form? Yeah,
everything's went well. It's his left shoulder, which is a good thing. And we've been pretty cautious with him. All we've let him do is 7-on-7, some 1-on-1, some scout work. And, if we were playing today, there's no doubt in my mind he could play. But, we've just decided to let him do some 7-on-7 tomorrow. But he's in a good spot. And I think it's really been good for him, too, just to kind of see things from a different standpoint. And he's actually helped the guys, the younger guys, kind of coached them up. And so I think he's in a real good spot.
Coach, I remember being down there last year around this time, and everyone was buzzing about him, and then we saw what he was capable of. You're certainly one of the top quarterback coaches around. What have you talked to him about just one-on-one in the offseason in terms of getting him ready for this year?
Yeah, I was real impressed with his progression throughout the year. He was playing his best football at the end of the year, and there's nothing like experience, and the fact that he's got a year under his belt in this league, I think that puts him in a great spot. And really, I've seen just his leadership. This is really his team now. Last year he was new. He was trying to get used to his teammates, get used to his coaches, and now he feels very comfortable, and, he's ready to lead this team.
Talking to Coach Malzahn, and Coach, I hate to even harp on this injury situation because it's epidemic around college football, but it's hit you guys pretty hard. I know that these things happen, but what are your thoughts on that, and can anything be done differently in the future across college football, that is?
Yeah, Eli and Will are the two that, had the knee injuries, and one was a non-contact, the other one was going out of bounds and kind of got hit and got his foot stuck, but it was very unfortunate. Besides that, we're in a good spot. Everybody be ready for the fall as far as that goes, but that's two very good players right there that we won't have at least the start of the season.
Last year was so extraordinary, and not to revisit it, but those two wins over the number one team in the country at home, and certainly playing for the SEC title. Expectations are always high at Auburn, and this year will be no different. Though. But what do you take from last year into the 2018 campaign?
Well, the experience factor of actually going through something like that. We went through major adversity. We were able to hang in there and get better each week, and like I said, at the end of the regular season, we were playing our best football, and it didn't end the way we wanted. But a lot of our guys are back, and a lot of our leaders are back. And anytime you go through that experience, you can take those things into the next season. And I really like where our leadership group is.
I remember joking about this when we were together in Atlanta, although probably not a joke to you, the fact that you played 3 of the 4 finalists. I mean, that's you can't make this stuff up, but you survived it fairly well with that road game at Clemson, a very tight game, and obviously the other 2. Have you ever experienced anything quite like that?
Yeah, that was a grind. I mean, we played the toughest schedule in college football last year, and I really don't think it was close. And, of course, next year, we open up with Washington, and I think, they're a top 10 team, and then you add the West, and your crossover is Georgia. And so we'll probably play the toughest schedule again, next year. But the great thing is we do have experience, like I was saying before, and there's nothing like experience, especially in this league.
Yeah, and I know for you, I mean, this is old hat. You've been doing this quite a while, and we talk about this league being so difficult. Ending the season, I apologize for laughing, but just kind of hard to imagine having to go to Georgia and Alabama. Those will be 2 projected Final Four teams. Yeah,
there's no doubt. Of course, like you said, I mean, I've been here at Auburn for 8 years, and we end the season with Georgia and Alabama. And, you either got them at home or you got them on the road. Next year we have them on the road. Both those teams will be good. And, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
Once this ends with the scrimmage, what happens next? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into your life in terms of traveling and speaking, but how do you handle once the spring drills end in terms of getting ready for the next phase?
Yeah, our last practice will be next Tuesday. It'll be special teams oriented, and then we kind of flip the switch. You go back and you watch your cut-ups from the spring, and then, of course, recruiting is full force. And like you said, I mean, from a head coach's standpoint, a lot of speaking events, a lot of travel, and so you just kind of transition.
And, Coach, I would imagine you're not supposed to assume this business, but a lot of time with a grandson. I saw that a couple of weeks ago. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, that's a game changer there. 2 weeks ago, I had a grandson, and, of course, Christy is very excited too, and that's a game changer, and so we're very excited about that. And I hadn't seen Christy near as much since my daughter's had him, I'll tell you that.
You seem way too young to be a grandpa, but that's okay. Congratulations, Coach. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're great. Coach Gus Malzahn joining us, a proud grandfather at a rather young age. We'll take a short break and much more to come.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a thrill.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back into the studio from Butler Cabin. Your phone calls are welcome at 855-242-7285. Again, I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Malzahn, reaction to that, and anything else. Darriel is up next.
Paul.
Hello, Darriel.
Why didn't you ask Gus? But Gus, what was most disappointing last year? You saying you beat the dog crap out of Georgia after you beat them in Jordan-Hare? Or you not allowing your team to show up for a bowl game and get beat by a friggin' chump school so they go around and beat their chest and talk about how great they were?
I'm surprised. I forgot to ask those two questions. I wish I had talked to you before the interview.
Malzahn, I mean, you should know better, right? You should know better. This is 2018. But you got to be hating people while we run around with tape recording because you never know, or cell phones, you never know when you're going to be recorded. And, that right there, you got to know that lit a fire up under Georgia for the championship game. I think that was obvious. That was a whole different ball game than what took place in Jordan-Hare. Did you agree with that?
Well, did you hear Hayes a minute ago blame it? He said it was all about Kerryon Johnson.
No, well, you know what? If you go back and you watch that SEC championship game, okay, Kerryon Johnson ran the ball pretty good. I mean, first quarter, he wasn't hurt. He looked hurt. But Georgia kept thumping him and kept thumping him and kept thumping him. But it wasn't like he was like 50%. I mean, that it wouldn't have mattered how he could have been 100%. It would not have mattered. It would not have made up the 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's just an excuse that Auburn fans like to use, like I like to use the referee excuse against Alabama. You know we can't lose, Paul. We always got to come up with excuses, right? Paul, what's up with? I just read this the other day. I saw you comment on it. What's up with friggin' A.J. McCarron's brother calling out Greg McElroy?
Well, it all started when Greg said that he didn't think A.J. was really going to make it in the NFL, and then little brother got mad.
Well, what, A.J. can't talk? He can't speak for himself? Oh, he's too busy. I'm sorry, that's right. He's too busy playing quarterback in the NFL, right? I mean, you know what? He needs to realize he's not no Matthew Stafford. He's not no Jay Cutler, okay? He's not no Peyton or Eli Manning. He's not no friggin' Cam Newton. I mean, he is lucky to have a job in the NFL.
Hey, Darriel, the guy has a job in the NFL. Do you?
He does right now, Paul, and this will be his last stop after Buffalo. You know why?
He's been in the NFL since 2014. I mean, that's really he outlasted Johnny Manziel.
But his brother isn't, so who is he?
And Aaron Murray.
His brother isn't, so who is he?
I don't think it's so bad. I mean, AJ has been in the NFL for 5 years. He's married to a model.
AJ McCrine, Paul. Yeah, the only thing they got going for them is Triple D, their mother. That's it. Paul, you remember when, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you remember when the day Bush Jones got fired, I called your show. Yeah. I said, Paul, I'm going to tell you who they should hire. And you said who? And I told you who, and you disagreed with me. Guess who I said?
I have no idea.
Jeremy Pruitt. I did. Hey, you think Tiger can come back in the Masters, or you think he's too far behind?
I think right now he needs to worry about making the cut.
I also said on the other show, Matt Kuchar, I think he's up like third right now.
You did.
Keep out on him. Yeah, hopefully we have a great Masters weekend. That would make it great, man. That would be awesome. But yeah, I don't see Tiger doing it. But hey, Paul, hope you have a great weekend, dude. Get some rest. You're a little moody this week. I don't know what your problem was. Get some rest. See if you can make it better spirits next week, all right?
Hey, listen, I'm not making excuses. I never do that. But he accused me of being moody. Would you be moody if you had to talk to Darriel and Matt from Georgia? Those are moody people to talk to. Let's get to the phones. And Steve is next up in Knoxville. Hey, Steve.
How you doing, Paul?
We are doing great, thank you.
Well, I thought you survived my other brother, Darriel, there pretty good. I don't think you're moody. You're pretty solid.
Thank you very much.
Well, listen, I was wanting to give a shout-out to Feinstein. He called it like it was going to be.
He really did.
We're going to make the truth sexy. It's coming back.
John came on here the other day from Augusta and said all this Tiger hype was just that. Cut right through it, and Tiger is looking very average right now.
Well, you know, a lot of people, I mean, you look at these golfers now, God, they look like they could play, Division II linebacker, and you get in your 40s and get a back surgery. I'm just not going to buy the fact that you're going to hang with those young kids looking like gymnasts out there, you know?
No, I mean, listen, he's played well, but, there's a difference in playing in the Bottle Top Open a couple of weeks ago where he came in second and competing at Augusta. It's a totally different animal.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if we're just so easily manipulated and gullible, or just
the media
make us think we are.
Listen, I don't want to talk like I'm not part of it, but the media sometimes can get pretty clueless and the hype machine, and I heard it from Jim Nantz. I heard it from everyone else. This is the most anticipated Masters ever. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even close, but the premise was that Tiger would go in there and blow the field away, and it's not over yet, but he's right on the cut line, and that's what he has. I mean, he can survive, but I mean, he's given no indication today that he's going to come close to winning this tournament.
Yeah, or making it in it.
Yeah, no. I mean, listen. I mean, he's a bad shot away from being on the back nine. I mean, he has to be aggressive, and if he puts one in the drink at 13, at 12, 13, or 16 or 15 or 16, then he may be done.
He'll be drinking with Mickelson.
He will be, and Sergio.
Hey, I got a question for you. Why you think all of a sudden in the last year, and this just may be my imagination, but the playing field in all these big-time SEC and NCAA sports seems to be leveling out? I mean, Kentucky was always dominating basketball, Alabama football, Mississippi State baseball, and hell, they're playing football down there now. Why do you think it's getting more leveled out?
Well, I think every school has more money. They're hiring better coaches, and I think fans in this current world that we live in are not going to sit around and tolerate mediocrity. So they put pressure on the administrators, and the administrators go out and do their job.
Do you think they're doing that at Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, look at Tennessee has a significantly upgraded basketball program. I mean, they went through 2 or 3 basketball coaches post Bruce Pearl and Conzo Martin, and in football, they went through. Listen, we still don't know yet. I mean, hype and reality are 2 different things, but it looks like with Philip Fulmer in charge of the athletic department, things are going to steady. And I believe that was a necessary move. I mean, they hired somebody to run that program that was a good administrator at Kansas State, but he was a terrible administrator in Knoxville.
I never could figure out if they gave that guy enough time or not.
No, they gave him more time than he needed. They should have never hired him.
You think so? I never could tell.
Well, he was a fish out of water there. I mean, he was trying to use a template that he had used previously. And you live there, Steve. I've only lived there for 4 years, but Knoxville is a different place. And you have to have
you can't be a fish out of water.
You have to be relatable to the people and understand it. And how they could have passed over Philip Fulmer for that job, I'll never know. But thank goodness he's got the job now. Thank you very much. Hambo, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Finebaum.
Thank you.
How you doing today, sir?
You're very well. Thank you.
Paul, how many assistant coaches under Nick Saban has went on to be head coaches in the SEC and just in college football?
Well, let me think about it. I mean, Mark, I have to do it off the top of my head. Mark D'Antonio did from Michigan State. Just in the SEC right now, I mean, think about it. You've got Jimbo, you've got Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt. You had Derek Dooley in the past, Jim McElwain in the past. That's a start. I know I'm leaving a few out, but that's a working list.
So if you want a head coaching job in college football, just put Nick Saban's name on your resume. Woo, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't think it's a bad idea to put Urban Myers either. He produced Dan Mullen. He produced Tom Herman just for starters.
No, he ain't won no national championship though.
He hasn't won one. He's won 3.
Okay. All right, Paul, I'm going to leave you.
I mean, you're not seriously going to trash Urban Meyer here, are you?
Urban Meyer, he's more overpaid than that idiot you just had on your program.
The guy missed the playoff by a hair last year. He made it the year before. He missed it by a hair the year before. I mean, come on. Listen, I understand the love for Nick Saban, but if you're going to praise Nick Saban, I mean, let me give you a reality check. I think Urban Meyer probably should have more titles, but outside of Nick Saban, over the last 10 years, nobody's done a better job. Now, Dabo Swinney has certainly gotten into that conversation, but don't act like Urban Meyer is just some chump on the street selling pencils, okay? Let's move along. Avery is up next. Avery, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, this is Avery. I'm originally from Louisiana, and I watch your show all the time. I'm a first-time caller.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to mention something to you. In 1964, there were 5 great players came out of the state of Louisiana. Do you know who they were out of high school?
In 1964?
Yes. I played against all of them.
I must be honest with you. I'm not that proficient in Louisiana history.
Okay, Don Taney, Elvin Hayes went to the University of Houston.
Yeah.
Richard Johnson went to Grambling.
Okay.
In 1968, all those got drafted in the NBA. And There were 2 other players that didn't go to college was better than those. Grant from George Washington Carver and Bobby Flower from Winfield. I played against all those in high school.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. And that was a little school in Natchitoches, Louisiana. You ever heard of Natchitoches?
Yeah, is that where Northwestern is?
That's where Northwestern. That's where I went to school at.
Yeah, no, I've been to that town. It's a beautiful city. It's got a really pretty river or lake river running through it. I've been there one time.
Yes, it is. In 1965, Central High School, which was an all-black school.
By the way, I've been there, Avery, but I couldn't spell it if my life depended on it. I know it's N-A-T something.
N-A-T-C-H-I-T-O-C-H-E-S. Most people can't. But I'm going to mention this to you, and I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
In 1965, Central High School of Natchitoches won the state championship in Louisiana, but it was an all-black school. They were 35-1.
Wow.
And there's no record, and you have to go to the archives to find them.
That's incredible.
And the center on that team in 1968 was Charles Butterworth, was drafted by the Chicago Bulls.
Oh my goodness!
I played on that team.
Did you really? Wow. Well, you know, I know Louisiana has a really rich history in basketball.
Yep. And also one other thing. Well, back then in the late '60s, you know, the black kids, they couldn't go to the
Isn't Carl Malone from northern Louisiana too?
Yeah, he's from outside of Grambling.
Right. Okay. I thought he was.
Not for where Willis Reed came from.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I lived in I lived in Shreveport for a year, and that's where I learned some of that. But yeah, that's where I went to Natchitoches when I lived there. But that's an amazing list of players you've just given us, Avery.
Yep.
Well,
All
thank
right,
you.
then I just want to let you know.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must take a break here. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Tim Brando will join us later on. Brandon Marcello talking about the Auburn spring game tomorrow. If you just put our show on, you missed Gus Malzahn. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Glad you're here. 855-242-7285. That is our number. Tennyson is up next in Texas. How are you, Tennyson?
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Thank you for taking my call.
Good to hear from you.
Hey, so I recently just got into Texas A&M University, my dream school, by the grace of God.
Congratulations.
No, thank you. And so I know I asked you this before, but now I'm actually really a lot more invested into the A&M season. What do you think my freshman year looks like? I know we have a very, very tough schedule my first year. I mean, we have Clemson our second game, and then we have to go to at Alabama and at Auburn. So, realistically speaking, that's 3 losses there, but how many more do the Aggies get?
Yeah, I mean, I think 8 wins to me would be pretty good for Jimbo in his first year. I think that's doable, assuming he can manage some of those swing games. But, yeah, I mean, I see 1, 2... unfortunately, I see more than that. I see Clemson, Alabama, and then Auburn, and maybe one more, South Carolina or Mississippi State.
That's what I was thinking too, Mississippi State, and that's a shame because I was at that game last year, and they let that get away from them, and I looked at the schedule.
I'll tell you what, 7. I think 8 wins would be a pretty good season.
I mean, considering the schedule we have, I'd be very happy with that, and I look at that.
By the way, what are you going to study, Tennyson?
So I'm going to be. I got into A&M, but I'm going to be studying at one of their branch campuses for a little bit for the first year. But I got into the College of Engineering, so after the first year,
with a name like Tennyson, I'm surprised you're not studying English Lit.
I took dual enrollment in high school, and I tell you, I struggled through writing a 6-page essay. I could never see myself as an English major, and then it's actually a funny story. My mom and dad, when they gave me that name, they told me the story, and it was actually pretty interesting. my dad was really into Alfred Lord Tennyson's poems, and his favorite one was Charge of the Light Brigade. And my mom was a major movie fan, and the movie Tennyson had come out around the time they got married and all that stuff, and they were thinking about having kids. And so it was perfect. They just said, hey, why not?
Well, remember one thing, no man ever got high by pulling other people down.
That is the truth, sir. No doubt about it.
Little Tennyson here on a Friday afternoon. Hey, thanks for the call, Tennyson. Congratulations. Had to reach deep for that one. Bill is up next. Hey, Bill, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul.
Thanks for calling.
I got maybe a couple questions. I understand in the football game, college football, in the conference, SEC gets the money, right, from all the TV revenues and then divides it up between all the conference teams. Is that how that works?
That's pretty accurate, yes.
Okay, my son and I, we were discussing that the other night, and he asked me about the basketball, and I really didn't know how they worked the basketball. Is it the same way
well, basketball, I think the actual, I think the share is a little bit different. I mean, you really, if you go to the tournament, you really cash in big. I think you get more money, but based on each round that you advance to.
But during the season, it's almost every game now. They're all the conference teams are on ESPN or and they're playing like 30 games a year, so that's got to be quite a bit of revenue.
Yeah,
coming from,
most of this comes. I mean, the SEC network is the biggest feeder of that because so many basketball games are televised. But yeah, I can't tell you specifically how it works, but at the end of the spring, when the schools meet, it's usually the end of the spring. Now I think it's been delayed because of the fiscal year, but. Every school gets a share. Some are a little bit more than others, but it is significant money based on.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is it's like football. When all of a sudden football became more and more popular, you've seen the stadiums getting bigger and more money going into the football program. And I'm thinking basketball.
Yeah, I hate to run. The biggest change was the advent of the college football playoff and the addition of the SEC. Network. We'll take a break. More to come.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Second hour of the program is live. We appreciate you being here on this Friday afternoon. Let's continue with more phone calls here. And what about Bobby in Oxford, Mississippi? How are you, Bobby?
Hey, I'm good. Paul, how are you?
Quite well. Appreciate the call.
Hey, two questions. One, do you think the Masters has become too difficult as far as the course layout and the speed of the greens?
No, I don't. I mean, listen, the Masters has gone through an evolution since Tiger. After Tiger destroyed the course his first year, they quote-unquote Tiger-proofed it. The problem, and I heard Nicholas talking about this the other day, Bobby, is that the golf ball is so hot now that there's almost nothing you can do to prevent or defend the course other than make the greens faster and put the pins in awkward positions. The problem today, and listen, the leader's 5 under par, which isn't a bad score. The wind is swirling, and if you're a fan of golf, especially having been to Augusta, that is a real suicide mission over there because it's hard enough to figure out which way the wind. It's most courses the wind's going to blow the same way everywhere you go, but because of the valleys at Augusta, especially around Amen Corner, the winds swirl. And they're very difficult to predict, especially a shot like at number 12 when it is such a precise shot that if you're a fraction off, you're going to land on the bank and roll back into Rays Creek.
And to follow up with that, but they always have wind. Last year wind was an issue. Tomorrow they're going to have bad weather.
I don't think Augusta. I think anything from 8 to 12 under par is considered fair over there, and some years tomorrow's a wild card, but I mean this isn't the U.S. Open. Par is normally considered the optimum score because you can throw the rough tall enough to bury a bear in there, but at Augusta you don't have rough, so and the course is not that long. You have 2 reachable par 3s on par 5s on the back 9. And they want eagle putts on Sunday afternoon. They want wild swings. They just don't want somebody to go 15 to 20 under par and embarrass the course, and I don't think they will.
Yeah, and I had a question about Ole Miss baseball, but staying with golf, and I'll leave you with this, is, with Sergio winning last year and looking at the leaderboard this year, it kind of seems like, and back to everything you pointed on, it kind of seems like, the great golfers kind of have to throw their game plan out the window, and it's kind of the guys that kind of just, go out there and just, don't expect to win and just kind of play like that, wind up winning. Anyway, so thoughts on that. And thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very, very much. By the way, Ole Miss baseball ranked in the top 3 in the country. That was your other thought. Thank you for the call. Let's continue. Matt in New Orleans, welcome to the program, and good afternoon.
Hey, where you at, Paul?
I am doing great, Matt.
Man, I want to tell you, it's good that I called when Mr. Brando's come on. I really transferred colleges from Tim Brando's school to yours, when he went broke, I think he went broke because we never bought any of the products, but anyway, I'm trying to buy some of yours, except I'm going to try to buy that hose they advertise. But anyway, I was making gumbo yesterday when you was doing the talk on Coach O. And
hey, hold on a second. When you make gumbo, I'm talking to a Louisianian here. Is it just like you throw in stuff at your own leisure, or is it a...
No, not for me.
Okay.
Where I tell you where you at, that comes from the jazz musicians where they were playing, they would tell each other, where you playing at, and the locals like me picked it up, where you at, So everybody calls us yats. But anyway, I specifically have to use the Creole tomato. The east bank of the river is where the Creole tomato grew. And on the west bank, the oranges. But let's keep it on. Tomato and the okra have to be in the gumbo. The Choctaw India grew another thing called the sassafras, sarsaparilla.
Sure.
And the root made that beer. But the leaves are what they make the filet with. You see, my granny was an expert in this. She used to have all... But anyway, but for me, you see, I'm different than, say, Colette's people who make it's all the roux. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I put the roux in too, but I have to have a roux, and I have to have the filet in it, and I have to have tomato, I have to have okra, and I have to have the Big Lake crab, because crab is a good base, for your gumbo. So I make mine as kind of like I could just make a okra stew,
Okay.
but it's
Well, everybody's got. I remember. I'll never forget growing up. I think my mother asked my grandmother for a recipe, and she said, "I don't use recipes. I just put in there whatever I feel like it."
Well, then that's true too. But for me to make my gumbo, it's got to have those
Okay.
ingredients that I told you in it.
Kubiak, did you have a question here for Matt?
Yeah, how do you make a good roux?
Well, you just cook it. When I used to work the restaurant at night, a buddy of mine loved the way the cuisine at my house was, so I ended up cooking for him. But you could actually bake a roux. I worked with a guy who worked big hotels, and you could bake it, but it's half fat and half flour, and to your color. You know what I mean? I had a little black guy said you should never. He was my dear friend. His cousin played for Nebraska. He was a famous guy. I forget him, but anyway, I said Rock. I used to call him Rock and Rodney. I said, Rock, you should always make a roux your color. Not darker than you. You are the perfect color for roux. Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening.
But anyway, it was.
Hey, Matt, can we hire you to do a cooking segment on the show?
Well, I mean, I'm really not a professional cook. I'm just.
We're not professional broadcasters, so we're good.
Well, no, you all are great, man. You know what? My favorite was one of my favorites is when we talked last year, and my wife was Colette. She was so sad because I was sad because I said the morning my aide died, and you come on, and you were the only one who gave LSU a chance against Auburn. And I was. She says, "What's the matter?" I said, "I was going to convince Paul that that LSU is going to beat Auburn. The man actually thinks they got a chance." She said, "He doesn't give a damn what you told him. He's going to tell you. He says, take heart. They could win." And it was such a wonderful game because
that was one of the few LSU games I got right last year.
Oh no, but you were right on it. But I couldn't believe that. I just said, "My God!" But it was so wonderful because YA, went up with the Angels and they showed the Pelicans go over.
Oh yeah.
And the classiest thing, sir, was that Gary Danielson, a Purdue quarterback. Purdue has thrown for more yardage in the NFL than Alabama, Stanford, all of them. And the game he gave for YA was, it just was heart-wrenching. And the only thing I can say is that it was just a wonderful day. The only thing I can compare to it is when the first Villanova win over North Carolina, because we were all hating on them, if you recall.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, but no, I think I wanted to. I've been listening to what you're saying. I think Coach O made a horrible mistake when he didn't go for it against Notre Dame, because knowing that he was going into this, don't you agree?
Yeah, I do, and I'm really conflicted by Orgeron because I like him. You have to be proud for the guy, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's put himself in an awkward spot. Recruiting has been good, but not great. He has so much competition now with Jimbo to the west, and Saban is a foregone conclusion there. But anyway. This could be a fascinating year. Not interesting, fascinating.
Well, if he could beat Miami, he could.
Yeah, that's cute. If you look at the schedule, if he loses to Miami, I mean, he's got a gun at his head.
I know.
He's got to go to Auburn, which is a payback game.
Oh God, yeah.
And Florida again. And that's before you get to the second half of the season, which is, Georgia is ridiculous. I mean, how you get Georgia on the schedule this year? State, Alabama, A&M. You can negotiate some of that, but you lose I see if you lose to Miami, I see 2 losses before September 15th. And then you tell me about Florida, Georgia. I mean, a split there would be fantastic, and I don't even know if that's possible.
Well, if they beat Miami, they're going to be all beat up. And who do you think they play? But they play Southeastern Louisiana. And if we beat LSU, I want the trophy that Florida team claimed that they were better than Alabama. What was that? Central Florida, East of Illinois or something? What was the one that won last year? You remember?
Against Florida?
No, they beat Auburn. Auburn was all
UCF.
I'm joking, but I mean, they said they were better than Alabama. So I say, if for some reason Southeastern upsets LSU, we want that trophy, because why can't we be number one then? Well, LSU once beat Alabama back in the 50s or something. No, but I'm teasing. I'm trying to be funny. But no, I'm worried for Coach O, and I think that when he failed to, I think it was a very bad decision not going for, because Notre Dame has the Joe Moore Award, the most beautiful award in college football, but besides it being beautiful, the offensive line against our defense, was going to give up a field goal. I think that we would have had a better chance had we gone for it, because Danny Etling is a better quarterback. Here's where my thing is why I lost confidence. I don't care if Danny Etling can make the pros or not. As a college quarterback, he was experiencing as a much better quarterback than these guys we got on the roster now. Maybe they'll be as good as him in 2 years, but they won't be in 1. And that was his chance to do. So I lost confidence in him there. However, he knows more about football than anybody else in Louisiana, with the absence of Saban gone, and there ain't no way the Saints people are going to quit to come to LSU. So I don't know, Coach, but I'm going to keep listening. And
thank you very much, Matt.
I thank you. So,
always a pleasure.
Thank you for keeping us informed.
What a great guy. What a great caller. We really appreciate that. We are up against a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285, and we are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Glad you're back with us. More of your phone calls here at 855-242-7285. Glad to hear from you, all of you. And Matt is in Louisiana. Hello, Matt.
How you doing there, Paul?
We are doing great. Thank you.
It's good to hear, and especially for your Conference USA friend here, your Louisiana Tech fan.
Oh, yeah.
But more so LSU. As you know, LSU baseball coming up. We got that big game against the Tigers on Tuesday. That's going to be huge for us, especially for RPI and the fact that we're ranked and they're ranked. And I'd like to see an upset, even though I don't think it's going to happen. Now, speaking of LSU football, I thought about this. You were talking about non-conference, especially they got to play Miami, they got to play Southeastern. Besides Miami, to put them at the question, who would you say of the other non-conference teams has the best chance of possibly pulling the upset? Now, you know my answer, but obviously I'm biased. I think Louisiana Tech. The fact we've been to 4 straight bowl games, and we've won 4 straight bowl games. We got a lot of guys coming back. But who else do you think?
No, again, you're talking about on the LSU schedule? I misunderstood you. Did you ask me about the LSU schedule?
Yeah, this year's 2018 LSU football schedule.
Who has the best chance of upsetting LSU?
Of upsetting.
Now, somehow, Matt, we lost you there. Somehow, it was just a lack of. I'm sorry. I think I understood your question, but we'll get back to it in a moment. Let's continue with more. Angelo in Charleston, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, this is Angelo Frazier calling from the great historical city of Charleston, South Carolina.
It is a great city. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and was a former tour guide when I was a young kid. But listen, I got a quick question. You know, I'm an avid listener, and I'm a first-time caller. And my question, the East and the football that is coming up, of course, there's not much been happening. Georgia made the scene for us. And then at the end of the year, somebody who just won the most on the East would go and get swallowed by the West, and that's where the balance scale is not even yet. But I want to ask you a question. Obviously, I'm a South Carolina Gamecock fan, and, of course, my college football years at North Carolina. But I want to ask you a question. In your preseason viewpoint, how do you stack up the first 3 teams in the East? And that's all I wanted to hear. Just if you could give me your prognosis, or does everybody just kind of pick?
Right now, Angelo, I would go Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and that's as of April 6th. I think South Carolina is really in a good spot. I realize the Georgia game will be difficult, but I think they have at least a chance to make that interesting, and that's all you're trying to do. It's kind of hard to take a flyer on Florida yet until the quarterback situation is solved. That isn't an issue at South Carolina with Jake Bentley. I mean, we all know what he's capable of.
Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to know. I appreciate the info. I just wanted to hear how it stacked up because I haven't been too updated by working. So
well, good. I appreciate your call. Thanks a lot. Mike is in Birmingham. Mike, welcome to our program. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. It's good to talk to you again.
Thank you.
I talked to you last year. But,
wonderful.
Hey, have you ever played Augusta National?
No, I have not.
Okay. No, I was going to ask John and Mark. I was working over there last year, and that Fort Gordon out there has got a couple of nice 18-hole golf courses.
That's true.
I didn't know if they might have played them or not.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I've been there many, many times covered the golf tournament, but I have never had the opportunity or been asked to play. John and Mark, have you guys ever played Augusta National?
You know what, Paul? I haven't played, but we are here now enjoying the Friday afternoon.
It's beautiful out.
What did you guys have for lunch? Pimento cheese? Or
Yes, yeah. And egg salad, yes.
I do half and half.
It's always a good choice.
They don't have smoothies at Augusta.
I was lucky enough to get a ticket for a buddy of mine back in 2011 for the Monday practice round.
You went over there for the practice round? That's cool.
Yeah, that was in 2011, and we went in that morning and watched Tiger Woods and players practice round early that Monday morning, and wound up selling our tickets for a pretty good piece.
Ooh, that's against the rules.
It might be against the rules.
I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to have to turn you into Mark.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Could I get Mr. Chairman over here?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Mike here sold his tickets, which I believe is against the policies of Augusta National.
Yeah, you are no longer allowed to ever get tickets from Augusta again. True story.
It's not funny, Mike.
And Mike, one more thing: if you bought any gear there, any Augusta Masters shirts or hats, you're going to have to burn them immediately.
And Paul, if you don't mind, we are going to update you. We told you Bubba Watson had 3 birdies on the front 9. He just rolled in another one on a par 5. Bubba Watson now making a move on Friday afternoon.
Wonderful. Mike, thank you so much for the call. We really appreciate that golf update there. Nick is up next in Texas. Hello, Nick. Go right ahead.
Hey, how's it going? Wondered if you could talk about Saquon Barkley compared to, like, Derrick Henry.
I think Saquon to me is a more adaptable player. I mean, Derrick's really good, but I think Saquon can do absolutely everything, and he can do it. To me, is better than anyone else. He is a rare football player. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Nick. Good to hear from you. Devin is in Tennessee, and Devin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Thank you.
I just want you to know, what do you think on Georgia's football season this year?
Well, I think Georgia's looking at I think they're looking at 11-1 or a perfect regular season. That's where I would go.
How many games do you think they are very losable for Georgia?
Not many. I would say the losable games in the regular season are, losable meaning what? 1-4?
Like they're liable to lose.
Well, I don't think they're liable to lose any games, but I think the most dangerous games are going to be South Carolina and Auburn.
Well, let me tell you this. Georgia's going to crash this year. They're going to go downhill because they lost a lot of players on that defense. And I'm going to break down their game schedule. Their first game, Austin Peay, they're going to lose to
I've always advised people who run hospitals not to let patients call shows late in the afternoon. We are going to take a break here. More of your phone calls when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a thrill.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Welcome back to the program here on Friday afternoon. Welcome back. Glad everyone is here. Let's talk next to Terry. You're on the air, Terry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul.
How are you?
I'm calling about the playoff. Name of 14 you got in the playoff.
I think right now I really haven't quite completed my projections, but I think Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I'm still trying to determine my fourth, but it's only April, so I'll check back with me in July when I've seen the spring practice and a little more time to think about it. Cole is up next in Pensacola. Hello, Cole. How are you doing?
Doing good, Paul. Love your show, man.
Thank you.
Got a question. Everybody says that Saquon Barkley is obviously the best running back in the draft, but who's number 2? Do you think Darius Geis is. You don't hear much talk about him. And also, don't sleep on Bubba. I think he's going to win this thing. Experience is key at the Masters.
It is. You know, I'm glad you mentioned Darius because I just think people wrote him off because he was injured last year. But a healthy Darius Geis, to me, is as good as anybody in the draft.
He's going to be a steal if he goes into the second round. A steal. And what do you think about Arden Key and his horrible pro day?
I don't know what to make of it. By the way, I think the projections are that Darius right now is after the death of Saquon and Bryce Love. I might take him ahead of Bryce Love. Hey, thank you very much. I don't know what's going on with Arden Key, but that you could say that any time over the last couple of years. Appreciate the call very much. Caleb is in Charlotte. You're on the air. Go right ahead, Caleb.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just have a question about the Georgia quarterback competition with Jake Fromm and the freshman coming in, Justin Fields.
Yes.
And we know that Coach Smart isn't afraid to put a freshman in the game. So I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Well, he's not afraid to put a freshman in the game, but I think he knows probably better than to start a freshman. And Georgia's schedule is a little bit easier, so I think you're going to see Fields early in the first game, maybe get him a little bit of experience before the Dogs head to Columbia for the South Carolina game. But I would be very surprised if he ended up the starter, much like I would have been surprised a year ago if Fromm had ended up supplanting Eason. Hey, thank you for the call. I do appreciate the call from Charlotte. More of your calls at 855-242-7285. We'll update you on the Masters. I realize a lot of people are bouncing around today. We certainly understand that. We are too. Roland is in Fayetteville, and you're on the air. Go right ahead, Roland.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you for the call.
I want to know what you thought of Chad Morris in his first season at Arkansas and what the expectations are for him for the season.
Well, I really like the hire. Just incredibly disappointed by the way it ended for Bielema. I believed in him, but it just didn't work. The Arkansas schedule is manageable. Eastern Illinois at Colorado State, North Texas. I expect Arkansas to be 3-0. Going into the Auburn game, I don't think they'll win that game. I think the A&M game is a very pivotal game because Alabama is next, and then a couple of manageable games at home, Ole Miss, Tulsa, Vanderbilt, and then LSU at Mississippi State and Missouri. I think Arkansas is going to surprise some people this year. I see them getting to a bowl game looking at that schedule.
Yes, sir, I think so, too. So my main question is, would his offense be like what Clemson runs? I've heard many things about him, that he runs a wide-open offense.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he runs a very fast tempo offense, and that's not the easiest thing to do. But I mean, we know what he did at Clemson as a coordinator. We know what he's done as a head coach. It takes a little while to implement what he is trying to accomplish, and you also need the right players. But that's a good schedule. I mean, that is such a better schedule than Arkansas has had in the past. I mean, no TCU, no Texas Tech. I mean, this is a schedule you can win those 4 non-conference games.
All right.
Or should win them.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Glad to hear from you. Gary is in Alabama. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Paul. I'm a first-time caller. Love your show.
Thank you
Hope
very
you're
much.
having a good evening.
We are doing great.
I remember back, at the very beginning when the 2 first SEC games were held in Birmingham, and every year, seemed like there's always talk about a new stadium in Birmingham, and they're starting it back up again. And I was just wondering if there's ever going to be hope, or you feel like there will be, Birmingham finally stepping up and trying to compete with Atlanta and getting the SEC championship game back, maybe building a stadium.
Yeah, Gary, I'm sure they're talking about building a smaller stadium for UAB, which is not really where we're going here. Your question is, are they going to build a multi-purpose stadium? And I mean, I'm in Birmingham a lot, and I have a lot of friends there. I was there not long ago, and I know that the UAB campus facility is really the primary focus of the new mayor and of the city fathers. I would be surprised to see a serious conversation about a dome stadium or a multi-purpose stadium.
Yeah, I feel like they missed about on that years ago.
They did.
Don't
They
really
sure
want
did.
a pro team because I feel like that would hurt the caliber of football in Alabama with Alabama and Auburn.
Yeah,
but
I'm
really
afraid.
say
I'm
with the
I'm afraid the train has passed Birmingham on an NFL team. I've always felt Birmingham was just right on the edge of being big enough, but not quite.
Okay, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Really good to hear from you. Good stuff. How about Gary in Georgia on this Friday afternoon? Hello, Gary.
Hi, Paul.
Hi there.
I love your show, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of other sports radio talk shows, the host just gets on there and just talks and talks and talks and never takes any calls. But you take a bunch of calls from anybody, especially some from the mental hospitals. But it's
Gary,
so much more interesting.
Thank you. And I get criticized a lot by my colleagues. Not that we're going to cry about that. I've heard some of them say you could hire a trained animal and come in here and do what I do by taking phone calls. But to me, the reason why this program has been different and maybe successful where others haven't is that it is the people's show. I mean, we get people. When we started in Alabama, and then broadened it to Georgia and Mississippi and other states, and now it's national. Where I think average fans are far more interesting than some overpaid, pompous, know-it-all radio talk show host. And quite frankly, that is my opinion of most of the people up and down the dial.
Well, I have to agree with you, and at least. And some of them just get in a microphone and yell, Stephen A. Smith. But I won't call any names. But look, Paul, I just had a quick question on the one and dones and the NCAA. The coaches are accountable for graduation rate, and I don't understand how if a kid comes for a year and goes to the NBA or I don't understand how that does not it's not a negative effect on their graduation rate. And then on top of that, how do they convince these kids to go to class when they're just going to be there for 1 year? And Gary,
we're on the same page here. And in terms of the graduation rate, I think there are some particulars where you can come back. There's a certain amount of time given to calculate that, but I may be in the minority. This is not a popular opinion, but I think if you're a one and done, or you have no more interest in taking classes seriously than the man on the moon. It's just, listen, Ben Simmons didn't care the year he went to LSU. He knew he was gone. Other players, I won't mention names. And, coaches want to talk a good game because that's what they have to do to please their bosses and please the college administrators. But, you either go to college, and try to learn something while getting an opportunity to make a lot of money, or don't. It's a farce to act like if you're a one and done or you're going to class, you're going to take the minimum requirements, the easiest route. Why wouldn't you?
Well, and we had I'm a Georgia alum, and we had a basketball coach several years ago, Jim Harrington. His classes didn't go. His players didn't go to class.
Oh, it was that was fraudulent what he was doing.
Yeah,
and guess what? It caught up to him as well.
That's right. And I just, but anyways, I just wanted to ask that, and I appreciate you taking my call, and thanks a lot. Enjoy your show.
Gary, a pleasure. We're up against a break. We will continue with more of your phone calls. 855-242-7285. Tim Brando a little bit later on. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back as we roll along on a Friday afternoon. David is in Tennessee. And, David, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Hey, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I love your show. And my question was, I wanted to know your opinion on SEC and nationally, I'd like to know, but SEC especially. Who do you expect to improve the most this year, and who do you expect to not do as well as they have done? Who's rising, who's falling, in the SEC and also nationally, if you can answer that for me.
Yeah, David, I think LSU is the most mysterious team to me. It's a fine line between 9 or 10 wins or 6 or 7 wins. I think Arkansas has a chance to dramatically improve Tennessee. And when I say that, I mean, we're talking about the 2 doormats from last year. So I don't think we're making bold statements. I think Florida is going to look like a much better team, significantly better. I would probably go with them for the most advancement because, I mean, they won 4 games last year. I mean, they could double that this year, and it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. Beyond that, nationally, they were really good last year. I think they'll be better this year. And I'm talking about Ohio State. I think Washington is going to be very good. I must tell you, I haven't really done a lot of due diligence yet, but I will.
Yeah, it is early, but who do you expect to fall the most that was good last year, and who do you expect to drop the most, SEC nationally, you know?
Yeah, I think in the SEC,
if Alabama loses 2 games, they'll be the most fallen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Alabama will be any different than last year, frankly. I'm really interested. We talked to Malzahn earlier. I think Auburn will be fascinating to watch because they have such a difficult schedule with Washington, Georgia, and Auburn and Alabama. Those are three. Yeah,
it's crushing.
I mean, those are just incredibly difficult. I mean, they could lose all 3 games and still be really good. Now, are there any swing games for Auburn? To me, Mississippi State is if the 2 games you really don't want to see on your schedule, but you have to be, are Mississippi State and South Carolina. So you look at Auburn's schedule, a loss to Washington. I mean, and then let's just say they lose at Mississippi State. That wouldn't be a big deal. Then they have Georgia and Alabama. I mean, Auburn could easily go 8-4, and it wouldn't be like. And they could still have a good team, and that's where I think Auburn is in a dangerous spot. Nationally, Oklahoma, I just think without Baker is going to take a step backwards.
Yeah, you'd have to almost. I mean, I'm a Tennessee fan, and I'm very excited about Pruitt. So, what do you think of that?
I think Tennessee will come back significantly. Now, of course they will. They were 0-8, but I think Tennessee will start turning a couple of games. I think that, I mean, if I'm sitting there as a Tennessee fan, I want to see a team that fights to the fourth quarter every game and maybe wins one of those tweeners. Last year, if you remember the South Carolina game at home, they probably should have won that game. They let it get away. I think it was in overtime. I mean, they have to turn a couple of home games. I'll try to call up the Tennessee schedule in a minute and go through it for you because Tennessee last year started at Georgia Tech. If you remember, they won that game in overtime, and everyone was upbeat. I don't see them beating West Virginia. To me, the game September 22nd against Florida is a swing game. What if Tennessee wins that game? And quite frankly, if Tennessee doesn't win that game, the first half of the season could be dismal with losses to West Virginia, Florida, Georgia, and Auburn, and then Alabama comes and South Carolina. I mean, at some point, Tennessee has to find a way to give them a chance with those last 4 games, which I think are all winnable. Charlotte, Kentucky, Missouri, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and with Pruitt, I mean, look, I give the man. I'm not even going to judge anything until 3 years. I mean, you got to give somebody time to build a team. So,
yeah, I think Vanderbilt to me is a team. I'm just not sure where they're going. They had to rank as one of the most disappointing teams in the SEC last year, but I think Tennessee. I'm not sure I'm bold enough to predict a bowl game yet. I mean, all that is 6 wins. But if you look back at that schedule, where do you find 6 wins? You can't find 6 without beating somebody important, and I think that somebody important is Florida.
Yeah. Well, Vandy, they're all studying for finals. Football for them is like a secondary. They got like 4.0. I mean. So, I love Vandy, but,
I do too. But yeah, I mean, that program to me, after a couple of games last season, looked like it was ready to break the door down. Instead, it was literally crash and burn.
They were. Anyway, they could have been more, but anyway, who do you expect to fall the most nationally, though? Like to, be. I mean, you said Oklahoma, but.
Well, I say Oklahoma because they were a playoff team. I think Clemson is going to be the same team, if not better, than last season. Appreciate the call. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you back. Second half of the program is alive or live. Take your pick. Tiger may not be alive. We've been watching him all afternoon. He just went into the water, into Rays Creek at the 12th hole, and that splash may have been his chance of playing for the weekend. Let's get to our golf analyst in Montgomery, Alabama. Rusty is next.
Well, normally they call me I-Man, but you can call me Rusty because we're familiar.
Well, yeah, actually, you once were named.
I
forgot you were actually Iron Man, and I renamed you I-Man.
That's right. You gave me the nickname.
I gave you that name and I can take it
right.
away.
And you know what? It was a powerful nickname, as opposed to anything you have ever given Jim, because he's always taking it back and quit. And me.
Okay, let me see.
Jealous here.
41 seconds into the call, you mentioned Jim.
And I'm going to mention Jim and Legend both because I'm jealous, Paul. I mean, you said that yesterday. You told Legend I was jealous. What have I got to be jealous of either two of them? All right.
Well, I mean, Jim is a famous caller, and hold on.
Wait a minute.
Jim is a famous caller, and Legend has his own radio show.
Of course they do. They're the two best liars on this show. But let's just do some comparisons. When I go in the yard, it's my yard, my trees, my kids, my neighbors. When Legend went in the yard, it really wasn't his yard, was it? And Jim never had a yard to go in either because he always stayed inside with Mama. When I went out and hung out and stayed out all night, I was with my friends and buddies, hanging out, doing what I do. Going out, playing drums and meeting people and rubbing elbows with whoever's there. Legend couldn't go out late at night. And Jim had no friends, so he didn't go out at night either. So, I mean, you're telling me I'm jealous, and Legend's got a radio show, and I'm supposed to be jealous of that?
Do you have one?
And Jim doesn't have one, and I'm supposed to be jealous
of
that?
Hold on a second. Did I hear? Hold on a second, I-Man.
Sure.
Take a breath.
Sure.
Did I hear someone in the other room challenge the fact that Legend has a radio show?
It wasn't a challenge, Paul. It's not saying that he doesn't have one. We were just simply asking, where's the proof?
The proof is that he's on radio in Birmingham every Friday night.
Yeah, he's also on SEC Network whenever he wants, but he doesn't have a job here.
Right here. I helped you build this program. I was actually one of the guys that stayed with you continuously.
Did anyone? I hate to interrupt. Did you have your hand up? Was your hand raised? Because I was talking to Mark and John.
Yeah, but I'm in this conversation and I'm listening.
No, you're just talking.
Paul. I mean,
no, you're not in this conversation. You're not in this conversation. You're just babbling. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not. I mean, you're the one trying to dodge it because I'm throwing fastballs and you're a slow pitch hitter.
Well, you're right about that.
Well, see, I mean, I'm trying to tell you, I'm bringing something. See, I helped you. I've been with you. Not since the beginning, but I've been with you. I am the longest.
Oh, so now you're starting to take credit for the show too, huh? All you guys, all you guys
on the air.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing, I-Man, for all the greatness of your calls. You've never learned how to have a conversation because you never stop talking.
Well, I mean, that's because you talk.
You don't talk to somebody. You talk at them.
No, I'm talking with you. See, you said something, you dead air, and I said something back, dead air, and you're not talking. So when am I supposed to quit talking? See, you can't sell dead air, Paul. I mean, somebody's got to step up to the plate and be the big toe or the big foot of this program. And right now I'm doing that. And I'm telling Legend and Jim to lighten up, Francis, because they suck. As always, Paul, War Damn Eagle, we're only getting faster.
I was talking to Mark and John, and one of you were talking about Legend not having a show. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm just relaying information.
Okay.
We'll get the tweet out as soon as we have it. We kind of slipped under. I didn't notice it at first, but it's from at Real Talk 995.
That's the station. That's a news talk station in Birmingham, a Cumulus station.
Okay, again, I'm just reading what's on here that they tweeted out. It says, Legend doesn't have a show on our station. He's an occasional guest on Kip Keefer's show. Legend should stop telling people lies.
And that's attributed to
Matt Murphy.
Matt's the
program director, Talk 995.
The proof is in the pudding there, Paul. I'd say Legend, what he's doing for good old Kip, sounds like he's making sure the coffee's hot and the phone calls are answered.
He's like Butch Jones.
You guys, I've had enough of you. You're trashing my man Legend.
Nothing wrong with interns.
Let's go to a real caller here, okay? Jim is next.
It is pathetic that you lack such compellingness anymore. And you get this fool, that started calling the show. I'm talking about this monkey fool that you say you named. Well, I renamed him the correct name. He's an monkey, spiritually sick, old, pathetic, loser, jealous fool. That's what he is. I'm sorry to tell the truth, but that's exactly what he is. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because I have discernment and perception ahead of the curve. The fool will never stop talking when you try to engage him, because he knows where you're headed. You're headed to make a fool out of him. He knows he wants to stop you from saying any more about how pathetic and what a liar, what a fool, and just a phony, false nothing he is. He never brings anything about sports. He only brings something about me and Legend. That's all he's got. All he's got. Paul, I can tell you, and this is a fact, it's not a liar. It's not a lie, because my photographic memory remembers distinctly everything that I've done and happened on this show. The first time I called you, 14 years ago, I think it was, the first time I called you, he followed my call and trashed the hell out of me after you said, this guy is great. Talking about me. You said he's a genius. You said he knows ball like I've never heard. Phyllis called and gave me kudos out the window, and then right after that, here comes this freaking idiotic, pathetic, spiritually sick old fool, because he's jealous of me and trashes me. That's the story. You mean to write a book about it? You already wrote a book. You ought to write a book about the imbeciles you've had on this show, because they outnumber anybody decent by about 1,000 to 1.
Well, the last book was a New York Times bestseller, Jim. I'd like to try to continue that feat. And if I wrote about all the imbeciles, do you think anyone would buy it?
Oh, yeah, because now they love train wrecks all over the country. Sure they'd buy it. In fact, that's why your last one didn't sell, because you had too many compliments about me. And
Jim, it was on the New York Times bestseller list. People bought it.
Okay, they bought it. I'm thankful you sent me a copy.
I mean, if I hadn't sent you one, it might have been number one, but it was up there.
But anyway, this guy and that other fool from Mississippi, they, like Legend said, all they've got is riding on us. Right?
Jim, the one thing we have disagreements. That's pretty well known, but at least we talk to each other. He just never. He will not take a breath. That's what gets me.
Paul, stop right there. Stop right. I told you why. Because literally, he even speeds up when you try to stop. Because he knows you're about to expose him for being such a liar. Exposing him for not being what me and Legend are, not being any good, not ever having anything, and he knows if you do that, he's going to look like the imbecile that he really is. Now,
Jim, you just said your first call was 14 years ago. I've been calling 20 years. So how does that work out? You've been calling, and I've been following you. How does that work, Jim? Do you know math? You said your first call was 14 years ago. I've been calling Paul for 20 years. How does that work out that I'm following you? See, Paul, I'm talking to him. Jim, it's your turn to talk. The floor is yours, Jim.
He's not there anymore.
Did Jim's mama make him come back inside and bring his ball back? My goodness, Paul, on a Friday afternoon, we was having such a good conversation. Now Jim done took his ball and run and hit again. See, there again, another natural-born liar, Paul, just like I told you, Warden M. Eagle. We're only getting faster on Friday. Have a great day.
Won't commit that we can get early.
Paul is up next in Houston. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. I sure can.
Okay, hi. But, well, by the way, Paul, it's Texas Tiger Paul is the correct moniker for me.
My apologies.
Okay. Anyway, I want to find out what is the status of Les Miles' job situation. Has there been any offers made to him that he's declined?
No. Listen, one thing we try to do here is shoot straight. Les Miles cannot get a job in coaching.
Because I thought that maybe the Purdue job a year ago would have been the right job.
I don't know what the deal is. I saw Les a few times last fall, and I think he wanted to coach at the right place, but it just never happened for him. I think he was close to a couple of jobs, and right now I think he has moved on. I don't think he's going to be coaching again, at least in college football at a high level.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, has there been any complete explanation of what happened the day of the 2011 BCS championship game? Because there's been a lot of rumors about discontent by several players and
Paul, that's a really good question. I'm up against a break. I'll come back and try to answer that eventually because I do think a lot of internal things cost LSU that game. Appreciate it very much. We are going to get an update from Augusta National when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We're back here in studio, but we're heading to Augusta to be joined by Ian O'Connor, the great writer, New York Times bestseller, who has been all over the golf course today. Ian, thanks for the time. I know it's crazy, and we appreciate you making a minute for us. We're fixated on Tiger, obviously, but there are many other stories. But let's start with Tiger. He just can't seem to stay out of trouble today, can he?
No, Paul, he can't. Basically, it really kind of started at the first hole. He hit a very nice drive and then missed a fairly easy approach, although there's very little easy about the first hole here at Augusta National, and then didn't get up and down for his par, and that set a bad tone. He's not out of it, totally out of it. Maybe he's on the brink of that right now. He's got to do some damage here across the back nine or what he has left of it, or else he's just going to be too far back. That's if he makes the cut. Right now, I think he's projected to make it, but he's flirting with not making it, which would be a bit of a disastrous scenario for him after really he entered as the betting favorite. So his game has looked really good of late, but this is different. This is really, Paul, the first time in a long time he's played in a big tournament where he was a favorite. And I think this isn't the Florida swing where he could be relaxed and freewheeling it a little bit. He came to the Masters as a favorite to win, and he hasn't felt that in a long time. And I do think, despite what he said yesterday, not feeling the nerves and the pressure of that expectation, I do think, hey, he's human. I think it bothered him a little bit.
What's interesting, too, Ian, he's struggling, but he has had two bogey saves on par fours at 4 and 12 that could have been abject disasters. He had one of those at 5, but he really has to do something on these par fives the rest of the way. Let's talk about Jordan Spieth. We thought he would run away with the tournament. Instead, he got off to an amateur-like beginning, but he did save the round. Your thoughts on him?
Well, listen, he is arguably the best young player the Masters has ever seen. When you look at his first 4 years, second place, first place, second place, 11th place, I don't know if anyone's ever matched that. And he's a guy who could have won 3 Masters in his first 4 years and should have won 2 and did win 1. So I did not think, Paul, he was going to run away with this despite the 6 yesterday. Listen, he's a guy who also blew a 5-shot lead with 9 holes to go a couple of years ago. So I didn't think this tournament was over by any stretch of the imagination. This course was really difficult today. He made some mistakes, but basically everyone beside Patrick Reed and maybe Leishman did. The winds have been a factor today. Pin placements may be a little bit tougher. The greens are really fast. This is not an easy golf course, so you're not seeing any crazy numbers being put up. Reed is threatening maybe to do that a little bit, though he just bogeyed 10 to go back to 7 under. And so Spieth is in a pretty good place, though. At 4 under, he figures to be maybe 2-3 shots off the lead, and he loves this golf course. Generally speaking, for the most part, this golf course loves him back. So I like where he is, but I'm not surprised he didn't run away with it.
And you've got Stenson and Dustin Johnson and Rory. I mean, some really big names on this leaderboard. Fascinating stuff to watch. You mentioned the weather today, and you tell us you're out in the course. Looked like swirling winds, difficulty. What about tomorrow? A lot of ominous forecasts we are seeing. What's it look like?
Well, it looks like a lot of rain, Paul. I think they're going to play some golf. I don't know if they'll get the entire round in, but as long as you don't see lightning here, they're going to play, and thunder. The course drains very well, so I think it can take a lot of water. I suspect they're going to get most of the round, if not all of the round in. How that impacts play, we'll find out soon enough. I think there's one thing here that was a theme that emerged from today, Paul, that's quite interesting. Coming into the tournament, obviously there was a lot being said about Tiger and Phil. And Phil winning recently in Mexico, Tiger on the verge of winning a couple of times over the past month. And really, when you look at the leaderboard, it's the young stars. It's Patrick Reed, it's Rory McIlroy, it's Spieth, DJ, a tad older than those guys. But Phil said something interesting after his round, and he's basically added that he's lucky to make the cut. And that is, when you get older, you start feeling more pressure at these majors because you know you're running out of opportunities. So Phil acknowledged that pressure is there. He knows his window of opportunity is really closing. And the young guys here, they don't have the same scar tissue, and maybe that shows. And that's why the leaderboard is the way it is right now anyway.
Ian O'Connor from ESPN. As we wrap up here, let me look ahead. Weather, who knows? I mean, it's the same weather, although people may get it at different points. So there could be some advantages. But as you look ahead, is it Spieth that you see coming out of all this, or is there somebody else?
No, I picked him to win, so I'll stick with it. My history of predictions not very good. It's a hole in my game.
That's okay. We know it.
If I had to put some money down, I would, and sort of did put it on Spieth. I didn't literally put money down, but I picked him in on ESPN.com and a couple of other places. I just think his record is the best record at the Masters, and he's got a chance. I believe he has led or co-led 9 of the 17 or now 18 rounds he's played at Augusta National. I think Tiger Woods in his entire career has led after 9 rounds at Augusta National. Of course, he won 4 green jackets, so who cares? All that matters is you're leading after Sunday's round, right? So, but I think Spieth is a guy who's going to win 3 or 4 green jackets, and I don't see any reason right now why number 2 doesn't come this year.
Ian O'Connor joining us from Augusta. Ian, thank you. I know it's crazy over there. I know it's not the easiest thing to get off the course and make a phone call, but we deeply appreciate it.
Anytime for you, Paul. Thank you.
You got it. Great stuff from the Masters, and Tiger is trying to make the cut. He's in a good position right now. We'll try to update you throughout the afternoon. I realize that we are not done talking. In fact, Tim Brando will join us next, and then your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash."
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Welcome back as we continue here on a Friday afternoon. Everybody getting ready or having started the weekend and certainly the Masters on. Everybody watching. We're keeping up with it, and I know our next guest is doing the same. We appreciate him taking time out. He played golf today, which is what celebrities like him do after working a football and basketball season to death. But, Tim, thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be with you. And, it's always a great day. Doesn't matter what you score. The fact that you're playing golf and watching golf, and in between you're babysitting your grandkids and doing a guest shot on Finebaum, that's a good life. I have to ask you this because I think we talked about it once, but you work for CBS, and I know you did shows for one of the networks over there. But I've always thought it was just a travesty that you were never in a tower. Knowing what Tim Brando knows about, unless I missed something, how great would that have been? Let's go to 14 and Tim Brando. Paul, I'm asked a lot, and I actually I mentioned this the other day. People ask me all the time, especially in the South, SEC fans a lot. They're like, some of them think you're retired because they're not watching the Big Ten or the Big 12. I'd rather watch the SEC, having to remind them, no, I'm actually still working a lot and doing really well. But I'm asked a lot, what do I miss about CBS? And most people think it's the tournament, but it's really not. It's and I never worked over the air on the Masters. I did do a couple of over-the-air golf shows for CBS in the 18th Tower, Champions Tour events, but I did work Masters.com, feature groups, Amen Corner and all that's on the digital side, which I still watch that. If you're a golfaholic like I am, I watch Grant Boone and those guys on Amen Corner, Billy Ray Brown. I think they had Davis Love in there. I'm watching that stuff. And I worked that for 3 straight years.
Okay.
In 11, 12, and 13, and had a blast. Scott McCarron and I did it. We did feature groups, and I had an absolute blast. And going to Augusta and spending the week there with everyone on that crew was so much fun. And like I said, it did spawn a couple of other events that I did for them, and I miss that. I really do. If you were to say, what do you miss most about your old employer, that was, and I wasn't even on the air doing the actual Masters, but it's so much fun, and it's a game that I love. It's a game I keep up with, and I did it digitally 1 year for Fox at the U.S. Open. Have not done any more since. And my thought process on that is, I guess maybe there are some things you're just never going to do that you'd like to. It hasn't materialized yet for me. I'd love to do it. I'd love to do golf, but it tends to be a sport that now is a sport-specific year-round kind of gig. And unless you're a former player or a teacher, it's hard to get opportunities. To CBS's credit and NBC's, they both do a great job, I think, of having real broadcast journalists up there doing some of the holes, but not everyone wants to do it that way. A lot of guys, a lot of producers want to have former players and coaches, and that it's a subjective business, so that's that. But I think there are times when, and I remember when Greg Norman was having his absolute collapse in '96 with Nick Faldo, and we're watching the Masters, and no one would say he's having a collapse.
No.
It was like everyone was scared to death to say that this is one of the great collapses of all time. It took Vern Lundquist at 16 to finally say, and he might have been at 14 back then because maybe Ben Wright was still doing 16. I don't know. But finally, after he was just absolutely losing the tournament in a very big way, he couldn't buy a par on the back nine that day. It took Vern Lundquist to finally say this may be one of the greatest collapses in the history of the Masters. Well, that's what a broadcaster would say. That's what somebody that's a broadcast journalist would say. And I'm really happy that Vern was healthy enough to get up the tower and work this week, because it's a pleasure for all of us. But yeah, it's the one missing link to my career, the one thing that I'd like to do that I really haven't been able to do a lot of. So thanks for asking.
One more. I'm fascinated by this, Tim. I mean, you've done every imaginable sport and some that I've never heard of before when you were at ESPN. But What is the difference in, because we're watching it now, broadcasting golf versus everything else you do?
More than anything else, golf is over acreage. I think it's the hardest sport to actually cover. And that's why I'll never be that critical of production people in golf, because 75 to 80% of what you're watching live on the air is actually on tape. It didn't happen live. And the decision-making that the producer has with regard to cutting to this or that shot on this or that hole is, I can't even imagine what that must be like. And I think that on top of that, for the broadcasters, many of them who know that they're about to be thrown the microphone to a shot that maybe happened 30 seconds ago, they have to say that you're looking at tape, but they have to not give it away. You have to be a little bit of an actor. You have to have some thespian qualities, so to speak, to make sure that the viewer is not tipped off that the shot's either going to be made or missed, even though you say earlier you're at 17. So you've got to be thinking big picture and be, to some extent, theatrical with your approach to not give it away, and yet cover the sport in a manner that's honest. I think that's what makes golf unique to any other sport that's really covered on sports television. Because think about it, there's a gazillion players on the course covering acres of land, and you're trying to make sure everybody at home is on top of it and is on the edge of their seats as you're broadcasting it, knowing full well that about 50 to 60%, and that's probably being generous, is something that you already know the results of before you actually call it.
Well, that's tricky. Well, let's get to what you've seen so far, and and give us a clue of what you think we'll see the rest of the weekend.
Well, I am impressed with Patrick Reed right now. I can tell you that. He is a bulldog, and he's a great front runner, and I believe he just bogeyed his last hole a moment ago and was brought down to 7 under. That's impressive, what he's doing. And about the only thing missing from him, he did so well in President's Cup and Ryder Cup play. About the only thing missing for him, he's one of those really great players without a major. And once he gets one, several might come his way. There's a chance that he might be, if he can continue on and have a great Saturday and Sunday, he could be this year's, Jason Day, or maybe Jordan Spieth of, a couple of years ago. Who knows? But he's really, really good, and he's great when he has a lead. The thing that I noticed most, and remember this weather I was talking about, and it's about to pour down, and we're about to have some thunderstorms and even some tornado warnings are out in nearby parishes in Louisiana. All this weather is going to come southeast, and it's going to be getting into Atlanta overnight into the wee hours and in the morning tomorrow. How the players handle that. Remember, if the golf course at Augusta National does get wet, it will pay dividends for the Bombers. So a guy like Dustin Johnson, who hits the ball a really, really long way, even Justin Thomas, who I believe today has been under par and got it back to, about 1 under? Last I saw, I think he's under par. He's in red figures.
Yes.
Guys like that can really hit it a long way, Paul. They come back into the field. Jordan Spieth had a really tough start because his driver let him down early, as it did late yesterday on the 18th. But if Jordan gets the driver worked out, he's so good on the greens, I wouldn't leave him out at all. And the thing that jumps out at me, Paul, more than anything else, is all of the hyperbole coming in on Woods and Mickelson and some of the other veteran players out there. Bubba Watson, baby. But listen, Bubba is in this thing, too, because of how far he hits it. There's some shots out there that left-handers can make that right-handers can't, particularly on the back nine at Augusta. He could be in this thing on Sunday, especially if the grounds are saturated with a lot of water, because you're not going to get much roll, and the rough is a little bit, tough and problematic if you're in it after a gully washer comes down in Augusta, Georgia. So keep those guys in mind as we get to the weekend. That's the thing that jumps out at me based on what we see right now.
Yeah, we saw Bubba make a unbelievable shot at 10.
It almost looked like the same shot he hit at 10.
It did.
In 2012. I was actually covering that on Masters.com when he hit that shot. And I believe this one today was at 11, where there's water. I mean, he hit an incredible hook with water facing him, got it on the green, and two-putted for par. It was a wonderful par save for him.
And finally, I want to go back to what you said about Tiger Woods. And John Feinstein was with us the other day, and he was railing about all the hype and the reasons why. Yeah. But and listen, Tiger is a standalone, never have ever seen type of golfer. But do you think it was overdone, and why do you think it was overdone? If you do,
actually, I don't. I don't think it was overdone, and that's. Your buddy Jim tweeted me today while I was playing golf.
Jim from Tuscaloosa. Does he not? Yeah, can he not let you play golf in peace?
I was, I took a break at the turn and I saw a tweet, so I answered it. He still thinks I can't stand Tiger. I have nothing against Tiger Woods. I just always felt that the packaging of Tigers was over the top, and I just wanted to enjoy the golf. And I felt like, gosh, guys like Matt Kuchar that are out there really playing well. Why can't we just be satisfied with watching highlights of the guys actually on the leaderboard as opposed to guys that are out of the golf tournament after 2 days? So that was my issue with Tiger. It's a little bit like the packaging of LeBron James. We can't watch an NBA game without seeing, what's going on with LeBron first. Wait a minute, maybe it wasn't his night. That's my thing with Wood. I think his transformation, both personally and professionally, in the aftermath of what he's been through since way back when I was on the air during the Iron Bowl and the problem in the driveway, happened at his home in Florida. I think this transformation is real. I think it's one of the greatest that we've ever seen. He's on the doorstep of winning a golf tournament, which to me should be enough. I understand why at Augusta he is a favorite, but at the same time, I think can't we just enjoy the golf? That's the point. And I'm rooting for Woods now. I'm like one of those that really wants to see him do well. I think the two best things of Augusta this week, Paul, for me, watching Jack Nicklaus's grandson ace the ninth in the par 3, that was incredible. As a grandfather, watching Nicklaus as a grandfather crying, talking about the conversation he had with his 50th, that was awesome. Tom Watson, overshadowed at 68, actually wins the par 3. And then the other thing that's just amazing about what we've seen in this golf tournament beyond that is Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods playing a practice round together. We would have never seen that with the original Tiger Woods. Under no circumstances would we have seen that. So I think he's very comfortable, and maybe to some extent, maybe Mickelson is helping because of his time as vice captain on the Ryder Cup team. His relationships with the younger players and even with Phil, his great rival, are so good now that he just wants to enjoy himself while competing. I think that's wonderful. That's what we always wanted to see from Tiger Woods.
Tim Brando on the Masters and other things. We appreciate you taking time out from watching. We'll let you get back to it. Always a pleasure, Tim.
You asked me once about who would I really love to have seen do golf. Wouldn't it have been great if Keith Jackson could have done golf, Paul?
What would it have sounded like?
Wally, there's a long drive at the Wildlife Country Club, and that ball is going to be up against the wall, redneck mother. Oh, boy.
You would have loved it.
Before you go, I was at a banquet with you one night. I think you did Larry Munson at Augusta National, too, didn't you?
Yeah, he said he's going to need a big wedge to get that one out of that. He's going to lip of the bunker, Paul. He's got to. I don't think he can get even a 60-degree lob. He's going to need a hoe. Somebody give him a hoe to get that ball out of the bucket.
You have not lived until you've been to a banquet with Tim Brando, and I haven't. It cost me a couple of years of my life once in Mobile, Alabama, but we'll talk about that some other time. Tim, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thanks, Paul. All the best. Give John and Mark all my best, too, okay?
I will. Thank you. Wow. Tim's unbelievable. He's absolutely one of the greatest in front of a group I've ever heard. We will take a break. More of your phone calls after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Let's check in with Squirrel next up. How are you, Squirrel? Squirrel, you there? No squirrel. How about Matt up next? Matt, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, you still mad at me?
I don't stay mad long, Matt.
Well, I've been crying ever since. Am I banned from the show?
Are you on? Are you on the show?
I'm on it.
Well, don't ask stupid questions then.
Paul, come on now. Don't be so defensive. Hey, I wanted to point out an interesting fact. Do you know who are the only, and Big Ten John may know this, who are the only SEC players to win the Masters?
Well, I know Bubba Watson is one.
And there's another one from Gainesville, Georgia. No, he did not play at the University of Georgia. He's my neighbor.
Well, then well, hold on. He's not an SEC golfer if he didn't play at the University. Where did he play then?
Florida.
Oh.
But he's from Gainesville, Georgia. Tommy Aaron. Tommy Aaron. He won in 1973.
Sure did.
And he was the first. The reason he went to Florida is because at the time, according to Tommy, nobody offered. He had a football scholarship.
Yeah, Tommy's also well known for being part of one of the biggest miscues in the history of Augusta 50 years ago. Do you know what that is?
Where they fitted the jacket for Jack Nicklaus?
No.
At the back nine?
I believe Tommy was playing with Roberto DiVincenzo and put down an incorrect score for him in 1968, and DiVincenzo did not catch it. He signed the scorecard. They were actually tied, and because he signed an incorrect scorecard, Bob Golby ended up winning the tournament without a playoff.
Really? Well, I know in 1973 because I play golf and live probably a half mile from Tommy. I play at Chattahoochee.
No, Tommy. I remember Tommy well. He was an outstanding player.
Yeah, but he and I talked to Tommy. His health is not doing as well as it used to, but he told me that when they made the back nine, they turned the back nine, they already had sized the jacket for Nicklaus. Nicklaus had kind of
since Nicklaus had won it the year before. I bet they had a size.
Nicklaus had the lead, but yeah, Tommy was he was the first SEC scholarship golfer. Georgia wanted him in football, and I think Tennessee did too. But he didn't want to play football. He wanted to play golf. He was a real good football player as well, though. So,
that's very interesting. Hard to believe you've actually brought something interesting to the show.
I'm not as dumb and stupid as you think I am, Paul. And I actually did talk to Tom Crean the other night. I did post the pictures on the internet. So he didn't say that he was supported me ranting and raving on the Paul Finebaum show, but he's a very nice guy. So, but I just wanted to let you know, hey, Paul, I know I've got a lot of crazy tweets.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We have an hour to go, and glad you're with us. If you're just getting on, we had Gus Malzahn during the first hour. Of course, the Auburn spring game tomorrow afternoon. More of your calls at 855-242-7285. Tim Brando also with us in the last hour. Let's go back to the calls, and Squirrel is there. Go right ahead.
For the past few days and enjoying all this Masters talk, too.
Good deal, Squirrel.
Yeah, I was listening to the past hour, these allegations from John and from this 99.5 program director about Legends radio show and about him not actually having one. And, I wouldn't really say that. I mean, I've listened to the show a time or two. I would describe him as kind of Kip's sidekick, kind of like a Cheetah is to Tarzan. Robin is the Batman. I've listened to the show a time or two. It's not that bad a show. I don't know why they're hating on him so bad.
A lot of haters out there.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask you a quick Jim question?
You may.
When I heard him call in whining to you just a few minutes ago, it made me wonder this question. Now that he's older and really can't defend himself like he obviously can against I-Man and people of that nature, Why don't you do more to protect him?
Why don't I do more to protect him? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, why don't you do more to protect him against people like I-Man and myself?
Well, because it's my opinion, Squirrel, in spite of your shots at him and others, that he doesn't really need my help.
He's a big boy.
Well, he's an adult. I would say that.
Yeah, he's 73. I'd say he's an adult. Thanks for my take a call. Aloha.
I don't know why all the hating on Jim. I really don't. It just seems like it's beneath people. Jeremy is up next. Jeremy, go right ahead. You're in Georgia. Thanks for the phone call.
Hey, I just want to talk about Dan Mullen and his quarterback situation down there in Florida.
Good deal.
Do you think it'll be figured out this year?
I hope, and I think it will be. Come listen, Dan Mullen knows what he's doing. You know, he's got a young player in Franks, and how he chooses will be up to him. But all you can do is look at his past and show me someone who's done a better job with quarterbacks in the last 5 or 6 years than Dan Mullen.
Me personally, I think it'll be Kyle Trask to get the starting job just because he can run a lot better than Franks. I don't think the freshman would be quite ready yet.
No, but I bet he will be soon. I mean, I can't remember whether it was Pat Dooley or someone earlier the week that talked about Trask showing a lot of progress. I don't exactly know how he'll do it, but I do know he'll do it well. Thank you for the call. I do appreciate it. John is in St. Louis, and you are on the air. Hello, John.
Talk to me, Paul. Paul, I want to talk a little bit about University of Missouri football team this year, and I want to get a straight story on how you think they're going to do this year. And then I had a comment about, you talked about teams that are sliding up and down nationally, and I tell you a team that's going to continue to slide down and probably go back another notch that you would probably agree with is the University of Michigan. That team is just derailed, no leadership, and their coaches.
I think it all depends. I think it all depends on whether. Hold on a second, John. I think it depends on whether Shea Patterson is eligible. I think if Shea Patterson can play quarterback there, they will be a really good team.
Okay, well, I think you sensed what I think about Mr. Harbaugh, but we'll continue.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan either, but I try to be honest.
Okay, what about the University of Missouri? I think it's a pivotal year for Mariota.
I know this is not fashionable to be objective on Missouri, but if you look at what they accomplished last year, they say they salvaged the season, but in the end, how many quality teams did they beat?
Oh, probably maybe 2 teams, Paul.
Who were they?
Well, I think...
give me Missouri's best win last year.
Well, you're putting me on the spot. Well, I don't have my stats in front of me, but I know where you're going here. I know where you're going.
Well, listen. The media loves a good story, and Barry Odom about to get fired and then saving his job with 6 or 7 wins was a really good story.
It was,
but when you look at it analytically, he beat a bunch of really bad teams.
Well, he did. That's why, I was going to tell you what my assessment is. I think Missouri is going to have to win at least 6 games, and 7 games preferably. I think it's a pivotal year for Odom, and if for some reason he stumbles, he could be on the way out. A lot of people here.
Well, everyone looked. They beat Florida, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Which what did that mean? Florida won 4 games. Tennessee didn't win a game in the conference. And Arkansas fired its coach and was just downright awful. So, by name, Missouri did a lot of good things, but they, he salvaged the season. I give him all the credit in the world for that. But to prove that he is a legitimately big-time coach, he's going to have to do more than just salvage seasons. I think he can with Drew Lock. I think the move to get Derek Dooley on board was actually a very smart move.
It was, Paul. It was a very smart. That was the comment I was going to make. Here in the St. Louis area in Kansas City, he's been taking a lot of heat for that. I think that was an astute move.
No, listen. That is you cannot criticize hiring a good coach. I mean, Derek Dooley was not hired as a head coach, and quite frankly, I think Derek Dooley on the second time in the SEC might be better. Will Muschamp has been. I realize he had a head coaching job at Tech, Louisiana Tech, before Tennessee. He just couldn't handle that situation up there. But offensively, he doesn't have a great track record as a coordinator, but he has a great track record as an assistant coach under Nick Saban. He's been with the Cowboys. It was a good move.
Yeah, one last comment here. I'm going to let you go, but I think Missouri is going to be really good on offense. I think they're going to have a balanced offense. They have a very good offensive line. They have a good quarterback, obviously. They have good running backs, and they have good receivers. I think Missouri is going to try to, pull the ball control and, keep their offense on the field, and I think they'll be fine. I see at least 6-7 games, and they better be. If not, Odom's in trouble.
Well, I would agree with you on that. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks.
Good to hear from you. Tim is up next. Tim, welcome to our program on this Friday afternoon. How are you?
Hello, Paul. Doing good. Thank you. Got a quick, small story for you about Augusta.
Sure.
I'm an avid golfer. I'm retired, and I play when I can, 2 or 3 times a week. And I used to play with a former Medal of Honor winner. His name was Ola Lee Mize.
Wow.
And he was, he couldn't get around very well. And he asked me one time, well, as part of his benefits, he got 2 passes to all the PGA events. And he couldn't get around very well and asked me if I wanted them one year. And I said, well, sure. Well, it came time for the Masters, and I couldn't go. So I asked a buddy of mine if he could use them. And he said, sure, be glad to, love to. He jumped up and down. He was just excited as he could be. So first day of the Masters, him and his wife jump in the car and drive to Augusta, which is about 4.5, 5 hours from where we live in North Alabama. And it gets up to the gate, and the guy at the gate says, these passes are no good here. And he said, why? He said, this is not a PGA-sanctioned event. Which I didn't know that. A lot of people I've talked to had no idea. But if you'll notice, you don't see the PGA logo anywhere.
Well, no. I mean, the Masters is run by the Masters, by the Augusta National Club. They have jurisdiction over the rules. Now, what they do there is they have a rules committee that encompasses PGA people. They have I've seen R&A people there on the rules committee, on the rules team. So it is definitely an international event, but they have final jurisdiction. You're right.
Yeah, but he came back home, drove back home with his tail between
That's
his legs.
Too bad. No.
He was really upset. Spend all day driving and not getting to see it. But I just wanted to share that with you. Ola Mize was a good man. He passed away about 3 years ago.
When did he serve, Tim?
He got his Medal of Honor from the Korean War.
Man, I wish I'd known. I knew some people that would have corrected that situation in a minute.
Yeah, he had presidents call and ask advice, and he's a really good man and tough guy. He wasn't but about 120 pounds and about 5'7", but if you get on his bad side, he'll reach up and pull your lips off.
I bet he would. Well, thank you for sharing that, and appreciate you honoring his memory.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. We'll take a break. We're going to check in on the Auburn scrimmage tomorrow. Second time today. We visited the Plains. We had Gus Malzahn on earlier. We'll talk to Brandon Marcello in a moment.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. For those watching on television during the break, we replayed some of the comments that we had earlier today from Gus Malzahn, and we're going to pick up on that right now. Look ahead to tomorrow's game, joined by our friend Brandon Marcello, who covers the Auburn Tigers. Brandon, thank you. Appreciate the time. So Malzahn seemed moderately upbeat, trying to decide exactly how much to use Jarrett Stidham, of course, having the surgery in the offseason. Thanks for being here, and give us your view on what you've seen so far and what you expect.
Yeah, I think Gus is just ready to get the spring over
so he doesn't have any more injuries. That's kind of been the storyline. I mean, they've had, in some way, some form, 8 different injuries, most of them on offense. I mean, 2 of his top centers are out for the A-Day game. Of course, Jarrett Stidham is still reeling from that off-season shoulder surgery. They're going to let him go out there and throw a little bit in 7-on-7 for 10 minutes, I guess, just kind of to throw a bone to the fans, give them something to watch. But mostly tomorrow is just going to be about seeing those backup quarterbacks, and that could be interesting because, really, if Jarrett Stidham has another 3,000-yard season as he did last year, he'll probably leave for the NFL, which would leave these 2 guys, Malik Willis and Joey Gatewood, to fight it out for the starting job. So, really, we're getting a sneak peek possibly at what the battle could be like for that starting quarterback job next year.
What about those 2? I mean, what are the thoughts? I realize we'll know more Saturday, but are either capable of taking Stidham's place in a year?
I think Malik Willis is, as it stands now. In fact, I think that if something were to happen to Jarrett this upcoming season, I think they would feel comfortable putting Malik Willis in. Malik Willis is a much different quarterback than Jarrett Stidham. The only comparable quarterback you can find in Auburn history to him in recent history is Nick Marshall. Wears the same number as him even. Same size, same type of runner. They do more zone read with him, which means he runs outside more a little bit as a quarterback. The question is about his arm, but last spring and even in the preseason camp back in August, he was doing some very good things in the passing game, especially throwing across the middle of the field through some tight windows, doing some great things that maybe a Nick Marshall couldn't necessarily do 3 or 4 years ago. So it'll be interesting to watch him this spring, see if he's developed further. And then Joey Gatewood's a freshman, a newcomer. Coaches have made it clear he is not battling for the backup spot. Malik Willis will be the top backup. But Gatewood's kind of digesting the offense. A bigger quarterback. Physically, he looks like a Cam Newton. He's not Cam Newton. Let's just say that. We all know that. But he's an inside zone runner. He can run between the tackles. Big guy, can see over the offensive line very easily, sees the field very well. But he's very, very, very raw when it comes to throwing the football. So be interesting to watch and see how he performs in front of a large crowd tomorrow.
Brandon, I want to go back to something you said earlier in terms of the injuries. I realize we're talking about a big group of players here, but what impact, if any, will these injuries have, or what's your projection on their impact moving forward to the beginning of fall drills in late July, early August?
I think the huge injuries are to the receivers, Eli Stove and Will Hastings. They were their 2 most explosive receivers, in my opinion. Will Hastings, his pattern move was the double move, and he almost always got open. He kept them in some really big games, catching balls down the field that really kind of caught opponents off guard. Eli Stove actually ran the ball more than he caught it last year, 30 runs to 29 catches, and was kind of the jet sweep thing, which is an important facet of Gus Malzahn's system as we've seen in the past with a Corey Grant, for example. Eli Stove last year and the year before that, very first play of the Arkansas game, I can remember a year ago, he scored a touchdown on a jet sweep. So important, and losing those 2 guys, you're losing not only more than 1,000 yards of performance from last season, but you're losing that explosiveness, that ability to hit the home run. And really, they're deep at receiver, but they only maybe have one other guy that could be that explosive. And if anything, I would say this. Outside of Ryan Davis, who broke the school record last season with the most catches in school history in a single season, I don't think you could have found any worse 2 people for Auburn's sake to be injured at receiver. And I'd be surprised if they return next season. ACLs take a while to heal, and the way the timetable leans right now, you're looking at late October, probably late November, and at that point, do you try to push it anyway?
That's a tough situation. Brandon, we talked to Gus Malzahn about the schedule, and last year, impossible to find one more difficult, playing 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. This year it may not be much easier with Washington at the beginning, Georgia and Auburn at the end, and I think everyone knows what's in between. Your thoughts on Auburn navigating a dangerous early game and a murderer's road down the stretch.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule, and maybe top to bottom, maybe not as tough as last season, which is interesting. Maybe a smidge easier, but I would say it's tougher just because one, that's going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium where they've lost both games there, and I know there'll be a heavy Auburn contingent, but Washington's definitely no pushover. They might be a top 5 team going into next season. And if you lose that game to open, it's not the end of the world, but it certainly takes a hit to the gut for Auburn in their hopes of, being a national title contender possibly, though it doesn't put them out of it. But ending the season, I mean, every Auburn season is defined by what you do against Georgia and Alabama, and ever since Georgia and Alabama in these even years have been road games for Auburn, they have not beaten either opponent. And that's going to be the big thing for Gus Malzahn going into this year. Yes, last season everybody's going, are you going to beat Georgia and Alabama? Well, they're both at home, and they beat them both when they were number one. But now he's got to go on the road. Can he beat one of them? Can he beat both of them on the road? It's almost impossible these days to do that. And because of this schedule and the hiccup in the schedule since the SEC expansion, it's been impossible for Auburn to beat those opponents on the road. And if you don't beat both of them, your chances of being in the playoff are pretty thin, especially if you lose that earlier game against Washington or trip up somewhere in the middle of the season. There's really no room for error if you want to be a championship-type program anywhere in the SEC, but especially at Auburn, because your two big rivals at the end are also the two best teams in the SEC.
I have a feeling, Brandon, as we work our way through the summer to media days, that's a theme we will be discussing quite often. It's a pleasure to visit with you again. Thank you always for joining the show.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it, man.
Brandon Marcello, one of the best around covering the Auburn Tigers. It's been a pretty good day if you're an Auburn fan listening to Malzahn earlier and Brandon then. We have still time for you to get on board. Final 30 minutes right here, 855-242-7285. We're about to put a capper on the first full week of April, and we're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back here. Final 30 minutes of the week. We're not excited because of that. We just like doing the show. How about Matt in Louisiana? You're on the air. Go right ahead. Hey, Matt.
Paul.
Yes, thanks for the call.
Hey, man, thanks for taking my call. Hey, listen, wanted to tell you quickly my Masters story.
Sure.
97 Masters, Tiger Woods.
Of course.
I was stationed at Fort Bragg at the time, and I won some tickets to the Masters, so I went down there, followed him and all the greats for a few days. Anyway, the first day of the Masters, Tiger Woods was sitting there all black before he teed off, and he looked like he was a mess. And I said, man, this kid, this is too much for him. He had his head in his hands. He was sweating. And then he goes out and shoots a 40 on the front nine. So I'm saying, man, this kid is too much for him. So I quit following him. And you know how you've been to Augusta.
Oh, yeah.
Everything in there is loud. You can hear the noises real loud when somebody's doing something. And so I'm on the other side of the golf course, and somebody said, yeah, man, Tiger's making a run. So I go up to 18, and I watch him. And he comes in, he shoots a 30 on the back, and, of course, he shoots 65, 66, I think 69, and goes all the way out and wins the thing. So the evening of the green jacket ceremony, and what a lot of people don't know is they do two ceremonies. They do one outside.
Right.
And then they do one inside Butler Cabin. Well, the one outside, Earl Woods, his dad tries to go up and shake the one black member that they had at the time of Augusta National's hand.
Oh, I do remember.
And security almost accosted Earl Woods. I mean, he just thinks he can just walk into Augusta. It wasn't happening. But it was just a great thing, man, to just follow Tiger around.
You know, Matt, I was there that weekend as well, and I've never, and again, I've never seen anything. I don't know if you actually saw this or maybe saw the video of it. But to me, the most, Lee Elder was there, who had broken the color barrier in the 70s. I mean, it was, I don't know if I've been to, I went to Ali, I was at Muhammad Ali's last title win, and that was an amalgamation of Hollywood and politics. But I've never seen a cultural revolution quite like that weekend in Augusta. And the scene that I'll never forget, and it remains my most. I mean, it wasn't on the golf course, but when Tiger walked, I think it was when he walked by, when he was walking back toward the clubhouse, when the Augusta National help, the people that the waiters,
right.
And mostly, if not all, African American, when they started clapping. I mean, I don't know if I've seen anything in sports quite as impactful as that.
Yeah, I tell you, Paul,
it's still emotional thinking about the cultural moment that was.
Speaking of the help, the people that worked there were two young ladies came up to me looking for Tiger. And I happened to be standing where his ball landed on 18 every day, and he walked right up there, and he checked those two young ladies out, and that probably became his downfall because I saw him clearly look at those women, But then one more thing on this one, Paul. So then, Ernie Banks was there. I don't know did you see?
No,
Ernie
I did
Banks?
not see Ernie. No.
Okay, so
Ernie
two. Banks is there, Paul. He walks up to me. He's got a hat on that says Mr. Cub, and I said, "Sir, who are you?" And he goes, "I'm Mr. Cub." And I'm looking at his hat. I'm like, what an idiot, because Ernie Banks is standing right there in front of me with a Mr. Cub hat on, and I asked him who the hell he was. But I tell you, just great memories, man, and it was just awesome. And then in 2004, Tiger came to Fort Bragg, and I was able to get an autograph on my pairing sheet.
Was that where Earl was stationed?
Yeah, Earl was supposedly stationed here early on. He supposedly had some kind of special forces background, but
okay.
I don't know about it. It was way before my time. But anyway, he came here, did a demo, hit some golf balls, went out and jumped out of airplanes, went to the ranges up there. But I happened to run into him at our gym, and he signed my pairing sheet. He was paired with Constantino Rocca in the final group that day. Right, I do remember that. That week. And, I tell you, man, it was just awesome. But I just wanted to share that story
Thank you so much.
Listeners, man. And I appreciate you taking my call, Paul. Thank
you for calling. I'll never forget. I'm about to go to Jim here, but I was. The media had access pretty much to everything at Augusta, and the players' lounge. I saw Tiger eating there before his round, and I said to somebody, "That's the last time he'll ever eat in there." What I meant by that is that when you win the Masters, you eat upstairs in the Champions Lounge. Jim is next. Jim, these are all memories of. I'm sure you remember.
I remember about what?
About the Masters. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Here's what I want to go to, Paul, and I want you to be sincere about it. I think you will.
Okay.
And I do have a conversation, unlike, the others, a couple of the other guys that, anyway, let me just get to the point. What is your honest opinion about why these two monkeys or turkeys, whatever you want to call them, maybe I shouldn't even use the name calling like they do me. What is the motive behind them obsessing about these falsehoods about me saying I'm 73? What's behind that? I want to know what you. I know.
Okay. Do you want me to put on my Dr. Phil hat for a second?
Well, I just want because you know what it's about, but I want you to explain that to the audience.
Well,
why would they? Wait a minute. Let me finish. Why would they mention some ludicrous falsehood saying something about a 73-year-old or me being 73, which is a falsehood? But why do they? What's the? I want to know what. I know you know, but what is their motive behind obsessing over something like that for the last 2 or 3 months? What's the motive?
I think the motive, Jim, is that they think it bothers you, and of course we all know it doesn't.
No, I think I know what it is.
Oh, okay.
I think you do too. That's not exactly what it is. Of course, they want to do anything to make me mad. Sure,
yeah, that's true.
But the motive behind it is
it's like MSNBC and Trump.
The motive behind it is to diminish me, to make. Obviously, they think that anybody at 73 is over the hill, is a dummy that's lost something. Isn't Steve Spurrier around 73?
Who's that?
Steve Spurrier. Isn't he around 73?
Yeah, he sure is.
How do you think he would stack up against these two clowns? This phony-ass squirrel, Ronnie is his real name, the perv, the house perv for Finebaum, and our monkey, the complete, spiritually sick, ludicrous imbecile.
Hold on, I have to ask you a question. When you I don't know if I've heard you. You've said it a couple of times. Spiritually sick. What does that mean?
It means he's spiritually void, Paul.
Okay.
Godless.
I get it
servant
now.
of Satan, probably, because he serves Satan every day by lying like he. See, liars are servants of Satan. That's a fact.
Okay.
So is Squirrel. He's a servant of Satan. They're both deranged.
You said a servant or servant?
They serve Satan. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, servant. It's not a serpent, but a servant.
No, I said a servant. I didn't say serpent.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I said a servant of Satan.
There's a difference.
Well, I didn't say anything about a serpent.
But there might be serpents too.
Well, they could be. They probably are. But I'm talking about
one thing they're not. Jim,
I know they're servants of Satan because it's proven every day when they lie and scheme, everything they do. But there again, that's my point about. And I know you know.
Let me offer
too.
this point to you. One thing I know, whether they're servants or serpents, neither is sapient.
Paul, don't try to be funny when I'm trying to be serious, because I didn't say a word about them being serpents. I said they were servants. You misunderstood the word.
Okay.
But again, back to what they're trying to do to diminish me. They want people to think I'm an old fart, like they are. They actually are old guys. I know that Squirrel, the house perv. By the way, does he still beat that perv wife of his? His model wife.
I don't know.
Have you seen a picture of that model wife of his?
Jim, you said you weren't going to name call, and
I can't help it, Paul. When you're dealing with deranged, these scumbags
listen. Why can't we keep this spiritually healthy?
Well, it's hard for me to do it when they don't do. Okay, you're right. I'm supposed to be. You're right. I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, remember that saying when they go low, we go high.
Well, let's go high. And
even though Michelle Obama said that, you probably didn't like it. But.
Can you also, do you realize what they're doing when they say anything in regard to being somebody, trying to put down somebody that they think is, are they trying to...
Jim, I don't know why anyone would put down someone else because of their age.
That's my point, Paul. But see, what they're doing is they're insulting the real 73-year-olds.
Yeah.
Example, Steve Flurry.
And ultimately, one of these days we'll all be 73 if we live that long.
That's not the point, though. What they're trying to do is what do you call that? I mean, I can't think of the right word.
You think they're ageist?
No, what they're trying to do is do anything.
I think what they're doing is discriminatory, frankly.
Well, no, they're trying to drag. Here's the thing,
Paul.
I
frankly think it's against the law what they're doing.
Here's what they're trying to do. They can't. Both of them. They can't tear down my superiority to them.
No.
As a compelling caller, as a compelling contributor on your show,
no.
On TV or radio. So they go in another area, which is a lie, making up falsehoods. Well, this guy...
Jim, I was listening to a show that you may listen to today, and the host of the show, he says, all these people do, their entire life is, their entire existence is about tearing someone else down.
That's right.
And I think their entire existence is about, I know you don't want to hear this from me, but you should take it as a compliment. That they tear me, that they're trying to tear me down. Their entire existence on this earth.
That's right. You're right about that. I
tear
agree.
You down.
That's exactly right. They bring nothing. Legend was right when he told you the other day. He said all they got when they come on the air is something negative or lies about Legend me.
But guess what? They're trying to do that to Legend now.
I know that, Paul, because he's superior to them. They've got nothing except trying to ride on somebody believing their lies, thinking that makes them something by lying about me and Legend, who are far superior to them, and they know that.
History will prove that those who continue and get away with propagating lies ultimately are evil people.
Now, you told the truth there.
Yeah. I mean,
you really told the truth there.
I mean, just look at history.
Well, sure, we know that, and most smart people, most sapient people
know that.
What they are. They're phony, they're liars, they're schemers. They're evil, is what you just said. They are evil. But, you know,
what did George W. Bush call them, the evildoers?
Yeah, they are. That's what the Bible calls them, evildoers.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I still haven't learned that I need to learn because, I need to learn it. You do, too. You're supposed to ignore those kind of people.
You're right. I can't do it either, Jim.
It's not easy.
No. But you know what? That is what I would encourage you to go into this weekend with, this beautiful April weekend.
Now, I want to go into something that I did for Laura last night.
Oh, okay.
I told Laura on a DM message last night, I said, she had that same picture up for about a week of her, the worst side of her, as good-looking as she is.
Yeah, no,
she had that picture up with I called it a pigtail. Actually, it was a ponytail.
Yeah.
But I told her, I said, you got to do something about that picture that you got up there with you in that ref uniform and nothing but your back and a pigtail. She said, I can't stop laughing that you called that a pigtail, but she said, you're right. So I said, there's a better side to you than your back.
Yeah.
Which is, a gorgeous-looking girl, woman.
Absolutely.
So she changed it immediately, but she said she was just laughing about anyway. So I have to take credit for her changing the picture, Paul.
If you talk to her again, tell her hello for me, okay?
Oh, I sure will. I know you don't get to see her and talk to her like I do.
I tried to call her once. She had my number blocked.
That's good, Paul. We are good together when we talk.
Jim, we're the best.
That's right. You're right. And
have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
They hate it.
They do. A lot of truth there. We'll take a short break. Back with more.
All right, thank you.
As we head back, we're head to the break.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Back to the program. Nathan is in Florida. Nathan, thank you, and good afternoon.
Yeah, Paul, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Paul Finebaum, I don't like the way people be talking about Florida quarterback situations. We got a good head coach. He going to get it figured out. Because you forget, he didn't develop him.
Yeah, I think we're talking about Trask and Felipe Frank, and I think that's where it stands right now. I think the incoming freshman is not going to be a factor maybe until the season starts. But I have great faith in Dan Mullen.
My family, Dan Mullen, look at Zach Prescott. Where's he at? Like Dallas?
Yeah, well, listen, Dan knows what he's doing. I thank you for the call. I do appreciate the call. Greg is in Athens. How are you, Greg?
I'm well, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I have a master's memory. I wasn't there, but the year that in '86, I think that was the year '86 when the Bear won his last one. I was out at Torrey Pines. I was in the Navy, and a bunch of us were going to school out there, and we got up there, and we only had to pay $12 because we were active duty military for the green fees, and they gave us a bag of clubs, and I shot 100.
Oh, what a great course!
And sent 2 balls in the Pacific Ocean. And I think that was my last go around with the golf. But we ran into Bob Feller as we were leaving. He was out there doing a ball signing tour, and then I graduated from class, went to New London, Connecticut to go to another school, and I'm sitting there at lunchtime watching the Bear put his green jacket on.
Bob Feller.
And it was just Bob Feller was a great guy. He had all kinds of stories, and of course he was in the Navy in World War II, as a lot of those greats were in the military during that time.
Yeah, what was Ted Williams in? Was he in the...
He was a bomber crewman.
Okay, yeah. People don't realize that. Your career military, but when you talk about all these great players that during World War II and later in Korea, they left. It's just those are some great stories. I know you've seen and read many of them.
Yeah, so it's great that everybody has their favorite moment that they can reflect upon.
Well, listen, I wasn't. I started covering the Masters right after that, Greg, but. 86 is one of those indelible memories that no one alive that day will ever forget. It seemed, what was interesting about Nicklaus in 86, a writer for the Atlanta Constitution, Tom McAllister, wrote a column on, I think the previous Sunday, Greg, and the first line was, does Nicklaus have a chance to win his 6th green jacket? Not a chance. He's over the hill, and that was the headline, Nicklaus over the hill. And Nicklaus put it on his refrigerator, And he said that was what gave him the inspiration to win that week. And he had a son on the bag, and it was really more about Greg Norman choking and a couple of, it was a collection of Tom Kite, Greg Norman, I think Crenshaw, Sebi. I mean, one after another. It was like Heartbreak Hotel. But Norman had a chance to tie or win on the final hole, and in typical Greg Norman fashion, instead of just hitting a nice safe shot and try to get at least a par to go to a playoff. Norman bombed it to the right, and Nicklaus won. But it was incredible. We're out of time.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.